Kukui's boat docks on Akala Island, and the kids are thrilled. Ash can't wait to get to their next trial. Meanwhile, Hal wants to try out the malasadas that Akala Island is known for. Lily and Selene, meanwhile, are just happy to be on land again. As soon as the kids step off the boat, however, they are greeted by two people. One is a green-haired girl who introduces herself as Mallow, and the other introduces herself as the Kahuna of the island, Olivia. Out of nowhere, Nebby bursts out of Lily's bag, causing the kids to freak out. Nebby flies over to Olivia and Mallow to greet them. Instead of reacting in shock, the ladies simply state how cute the Pokemon is, while Lily tries to wrangle Nebby back into the bag. Olivia greets the gang properly, telling them that Mallow is one of the 3 trial captains of the island. Ash is surprised to hear that there are 3, and Mallow explains that her trial is held at the Lush Jungle, but that is pretty far from them. Ash is initially upset to hear this, but Olivia notes that there is a closer trial they can take on if they really want, which Ash agrees to. That said, she also recommends them to check out more of Hiya City, since there's a lot to do. Ash says he really wants to get to the next trial, but Selene and Lily want to do some shopping, while Hal really wants to try out those malasadas. With Ash being outnumbered, he decides to go do some training with his Pokemon. Kukui wishes the kids luck and tells them he'll be returning to Mele Mele Island. Before he leaves, he asks Lily if she can research the Ruins of Life for him. At first, she's confused on what this place is, and he tells her that it's a sacred location to Akala Island with a lot of history. He wonders if maybe she can find out more information on that mysterious portal that she and Ash saw in the sky, so Lily agrees. Hal heads to the Pokemon Center and has a malasada snack with his Pokemon. While there, he realizes that he forgot to get Eevee's fur cut by Hala before leaving, so he wanders around to see if he can find some place to get that done. Selene and Lily decide to go clothing shopping, and this is where Selene buys a completely new outfit. She also buys some new clothes for Ash that she thinks he'd like. Lily says that her new outfit looks great and also recommends to Selene to check out the salon since she's changing her look. Selene, Lily, and Hal bump into each other at a hair salon, where Selene changes up her hairstyle and hair color, and Hal asks if one of the stylists can cut Pokemon hair. A lady offers to trim Eevee's hair because it's so cute, and she gives Eevee a cute little hairdo. The trio then reunite with Ash, who had simply spent his time asking how to get to the next trial site, since he remembered that Olivia never told him specifically where it was, and he learned that they had to go through Paniola town, so they head off. But before they go, Selene gives Ash the new clothes she bought him, so he changes his shoes and shirt. Look y'all, I just never liked Ash wearing Ilio's exact outfit, especially since the shirt and shoes are clearly Aram's Poplio, which Ash never owns, even here, so I'm giving him the sporty Thunderbolt shoes and a Surfing Pikachu shirt. In my head. But you're free to imagine him wearing his usual outfit, since obviously I have no choice but to use the original official image to represent him. Same for Selene's outfit and her hair changes, which I obviously can't represent, but I'll put an image on screen of what she looks like in my head. After a long trek, the group makes it to Paniola town. Here, Hal already wants to buy more malasadas, but Selene reminds him to focus on their mission. Before they can even look around, they hear screams in the distance. They run over to see what the commotion is about, and they see a group of children yelling at some ominous figures. To no one's surprise, it turns out to be a bunch of Team Skull members. Furious, Selene immediately makes her way over to the grunts, demanding to know what they're up to. The trainers explain that Team Skull just stole their Pokeballs and won't give them back. The Team Skull grunts said that they saw the kids had island amulets, so they decided to take their Pokemon. After all, they can't compete in the island challenge without Pokemon. This angers Selene even further, and she demands that they return the Pokemon. One of the grunts commands his Zubat to use haze to shroud everyone in darkness, while another runs off with the Pokeballs. Selene runs off behind the grunt and Hal tails after her. Ash and Lily attempt to follow them as well, but the grunts send out their own Pokemon to block them, so Ash and Lily have no choice but to take them down. As Selene chases after the grunts, she has Ariel shoot bubble beams and eventually stops them. The grunt turns around, yelling at Selene to just back off, but Selene says she'll never let an island challenger have their journey ruined because of thugs like Team Skull, and tells the grunt to return the Pokemon. The grunt pulls out one of her Pokeballs, but before she can do anything, she notices an air slash coming toward her. Before she can move away, the attack is intercepted by an electric attack, but just barely. Hal has caught up, and he has his Pichu out. Selene thanks Hal for helping her. Hal says that it was nothing, but wonders where that attack came from. The two look around to see a strange boy standing down the road, with an even stranger Pokemon behind him. The Team Skull grunt happily agrees the guy, ordering him to get Selene and Hao off her back. So you're a part of Team Skull too? Him? More like hired help, the grunt yells back. The boy walks up and asks what is even going on. Selene explains the situation and the boy rolls his eyes. Seriously? Stealing Pokemon now? I thought we were just sabotaging trial sites. We told you that didn't work, so the boss told us to try something different. Stop asking questions and just get her out of here. Hao asks who he is. The boy introduces himself as Gladion and says that he only works with Team Skull to make his own Pokemon stronger and for no other reason. He's not here to steal other people's Pokemon. But Selene says that if he is a part of Team Skull, then he's her enemy and demands to battle him. Gladion smiles at this, stating that it'll be his pleasure. He sends out a Rockruff, and Selene sends in her Popplio. Uriel may have the type advantage, but Gladion's Pokemon is still pretty strong. After a hard-fought battle, Selene emerges victorious. But Gladion seems unfazed and commands the Pokemon behind him to get into the battle. Hao asks what on earth this Pokemon is, and Gladion simply calls it Null. Null turns out to be quite powerful, as it takes out not only Uriel, but Selene's entire team. The Skullgrunt laughs at Selene's defeat and tells Gladion that they can make their getaway now. But Gladion actually tells her to return the stolen Pokemon. The grunt is shocked and asks why, and Gladion simply has no growl at the girl. The terrified grunt hands over the Pokeballs and angrily tells Gladion that the boss won't be happy with him when she tells him about this, and she storms off. Gladion walks closer to them and tosses the Pokeballs to Hao, asking him to return them to their proper trainers. Hao asks Gladion why he's working with Team Skull when he clearly doesn't seem to agree with them. But before he can answer, they hear shouting. Ash, Lily, and the other trainers finally catch up to them. Once Lily gets close enough and sees Gladion, she nearly trips and falls. Gladion? Lily, what are you doing here? He asks, but Selene pipes in. Lily, you know this Team Skull guy? Team Skull? What? Gladion, what is she talking about? Lily seems shocked, horrified even, by Selene's words. Gladion stands silently for a few moments before turning his eyes back to Selene. If you're a friend of Lily's, then you aren't my enemy, but stay out of my way in the future. And with that, Gladion begins to walk off. Lily calls out to him and tries to run after him, but he has no fire off a weak air slash to stop her. He tells her to not bother following him and to stay safe. Lily stops running, unable to do anything. Selene meanwhile yells at Gladion, telling him that she'll defeat anyone who is a part of Team Skull, which includes him. Ash and Hao run up to Lily and ask the question burning on everyone's minds. Who was that guy? That was my brother. Ash and Hao are shocked. Meanwhile, Selene is furious. How on earth could she not tell them that her brother was a member of Team Skull? Lily defensively states that she had no idea Gladion was working with Team Skull, and last she'd seen him, he simply wanted to train his Pokemon to become stronger. Hao says that maybe Gladion is some kind of secret agent, and he's working undercover to learn Team Skull's secrets. Selene says that she highly doubts that, and thinks Gladion is just as bad as Team Skull. Hao argues that Gladion can't be so bad, since he made the Team Skullgrunt return the stolen Pokemon. Ash meanwhile looks over to Lily, who is just standing silently. Lily is beyond confused and has no idea why her brother would do something like this. Why, Gladion? When we left home, we said we needed to become stronger to fix our family. But why is this the road you choose? Lily thinks there must be a reason Gladion would do this, but she doesn't want to say more since Selene still seems upset. The kids decide to let it go and move on. The group spends the night in Paniola town, and while everyone else is asleep, Lily gets up and goes outside. Nebby follows behind her and happily munches on a few nearby berries. Lily just stares at the moon, wondering why Gladion would work with Team Skull for any reason. As she's pondering things, she feels a disturbance in the air. She looks around and initially doesn't see anything, but she hears Nebby call out to her and is pointing at a nearby rustling bush. Frightened, Lily calls out Sandy to check it out, as he's her bravest Pokemon. The Alolan Sandshrew goes over to the bush and a purple Pokemon pops out. Lily freaks out and Sandy uses Metal Claw. The Pokemon shrieks loudly as it just barely dodges the attack, and Lily rushes over to help it. The Pokemon shyly floats away, but Lily apologizes to it, saying that Sandy and she were just startled and didn't mean to scare it. The Pokemon stares at her, confused. Nebby then floats over and hands it a berry. The Pokemon takes it and eats it happily, and Nebby cuddles up to the equally strange creature. Ash, Hao, and Selene emerge from the Pokemon Center and check on things, having heard the loud shriek of the strange Pokemon. Everyone is confused at the sight of the creature, and they ask Lily where the Pokemon came from. She says that it was hiding in a nearby bush, but she has no clue what it is. Ash asks the Rotom Dex to scan it, but the Pokédex says he has no data on the Pokemon. This shocks everyone, and they start to wonder if maybe it's a rare Pokemon. Selene says that she thinks it's cute, and Ash thinks it's cool that Lily found such a unique Pokemon. Hao then points out that it and Nebby seem to like each other, and suggests that Lily catch it. This catches Lily off guard, and she isn't too sure at first, but Nebby rushes over to her and stares cutely at her, almost begging her to agree. And the weird Pokemon surprisingly mimics the action as well. And how can she say no to that? She tells the Pokemon that it can hang around with Nebby in the bag, so long as it doesn't wander off. The Pokemon agrees, and it and Nebby celebrate happily. The Pokemon dives into the bag, where it is captured by a random Pokeball before it lets itself out once more. The group is happy over the new addition, but Ash asks Lily what she'll call the Pokemon, since they don't know what it is. At that, Lily remarks that she has no idea, but Selene brings up to her that she could just give it a nickname like her other Pokemon. Lily agrees and thinks it over for a moment, before looking up at the sky. Moon. Moon? The others ask. Yes, I'll call it Moon, because I was looking at the moon when I found it. The others agree that it sounds like a nice name, and Moon is officially welcomed into the group. From afar, Lily didn't realize it, but she was being watched. Someone saw her catch that Pokemon, and they are currently very intrigued. They decide to follow Lily and her friends, as they have business with that Pokemon of hers. The next morning, the group learns that Brooklet Hill is the location of the nearest trial site. Rotom Dex tells them that they can get there by heading north to Paniola Ranch, where a shortcut will lead them to the Brooklet Hill. Trusting the talking Pokédex, they take his word for it, so they make their way to the ranch. After a while, the group makes it to the ranch, where they come across a huge amount of Pokemon. Ranchers and breeders are all over the ranch, and one breeder tells the gang that Paniola Ranch is where Alola's ride Pokemon are bred and raised. Ash is confused, as he's never heard of ride Pokemon. Hal explains that many people in Alola use the assistance of specially trained Pokemon for travel, with the use of an item called the Ride Pager. It sends Pokeballs to and from Paniola Ranch to travelers, so they can traverse through an area easier. Once finished, they send the Pokemon back to the ranch in an instant. Ash thinks this sounds super cool, and he wants to check out the ride Pokemon. The ranchers agree and show them their Stoutland and Tauros. After a day of working with the Pokemon, they give the kids a ride pager to call upon Pokemon to help them if they ever need it. The kids thank them and head off to Brooklet Hill once more. Making their way along Route 5, Nebby randomly bursts out of Lily's bag and flies off. Lily calls out to it, but to make matters worse, Moon flies out of the bag after Nebby. Pikachu dashes off after it, as do the kids. Everyone runs after the little cloud creature, but Nebby stops to a halt when it sees two people standing in front of it, blocking its path. Moon and Pikachu stop as well, looking at the oddly dressed people in shock and confusion. The kids reach the Pokemon and are likewise confused by the duo's weird uniforms. Selene asks them who they are, but the taller of the duo ignores her question. Instead, he asks Lily where she got that Pokemon from. Lily assumes they're talking about Nebby and tell them that it's none of their business, but the shorter one specifies that they were referring to Moon. Upon hearing this, Lily tells them that she found the Pokemon in a bush a few nights ago. They ask if she knows what it's called, and she answers honestly that she doesn't. Selene asks them again who they are, and they introduce themselves as Dulce and Zossie of the Ultra Recon Squad. They tell them that they are researching many strange creatures popping up in Alola these days. The kids tell them that they've never heard of such a group, and Selene asks them if they have any connection to Team Skull. Zossie explains that they've never heard of them. Dulce asks Lily if he can have a battle against her Pokemon, but she notes that she only just caught the Pokemon, which she calls Moon. Dulce remarks that it is an interesting name choice, but that she may as well battle with it so she can see how strong it is. Lily figures he has a point, so she agrees to the battle. Dulce sends out his Furfrou, and Lily has Moon enter the battle. Rotom Dex informs Lily that, even though he doesn't know what Moon is, he can still read the moves it knows. They are Poison Jab, Fell Stinger, and Venoshock. Right before the battle begins, Zossie pulls out a laptop and begins typing. The others notice this, internally wondering what she's doing. Meanwhile, the battle begins. Lily commands a Poison Jab, while Furfrou goes for Headbutt. The Pokemon collide and knock each other back. Those calls for a dig, which hits Moon hard. Lily orders a Fell Stinger, and the attack seems to do a decent amount of damage. Furfrou uses Headbutt once again, and Lily has Moon dodge and use Poison Jab once more, and this time Furfrou becomes poisoned by the hit. Dose orders Furfrou to use Cotton Guard, but from here, Lily knows what to do. She orders a Venoshock, and the now powered up attack takes out Furfrou. Lily happily praises Moon for the victory as Zossie approaches Dose. She tells him that she got all the data needed for Moon on her laptop. Dose praises her for the good job, and says that the boss should be happy with their research. Lily and the others approach them, asking what they're doing and why they wanted a battle with Moon. But Dose waves them off, telling them that they need to leave now. He tells Lily to be sure to take care of Moon, and that it's a very special Pokemon. Hao asks what they know about Moon, but once again, they simply reiterate that they need to leave. And with that, they head off without another word. The children are beyond confused, but figure that there isn't anything else they can do. Nebby and Moon return to the bag, and the group get back on the road. The kids make it to Route 5, where they rest up at a Pokemon Center. In the center, they hear a bunch of trainers talking about the nearby island trial. Some trainers talk about how powerful the Totem Pokemon was, and how it defeated their Pokemon. Others brag about how they beat the Totem and got their Waterium Z. Ash and his friends decide to go over to the trainers to ask where the trial site is. The other challengers tell them that it is at Brooklet Hill, which is actually nearby, so the group plans to head that way. The group are on their way, and as they're walking, a trainer runs up to them in tears. Lily asks what's wrong, and the child says that their island amulet was stolen. Hao asks what the thief looked like, and the trainer says that they were a gangster-looking group with bandanas on their faces. Furious, Selene knows that it was the work of Team Skull. Without even asking any questions, she dashes over toward the direction the trainer came from. Eventually, she finds a group of Team Skull members huddled together. Selene sends out Meadow to shock them with Revelation Dance. The grunts angrily turn around and yell at her. One of the female grunts is holding multiple island amulets in her hand. Selene demands that she return the stolen amulets, and all of the grunts respond by sending out a bunch of Pokemon to attack Selene. Selene sends out her other Pokemon and begin her attack on the Team Skull grunts. Unfortunately, Selene is severely outnumbered. She's struggling a lot until a few stray attacks fly out of nowhere. Ash, Hao, and Lily had caught up to join the fight. With everyone fighting together, the kids defeat the Team Skull grunts. Selene has Ariel create a bubble balloon to trap the Team Skull grunts. She demands the grunts to give back the amulets, but they still refuse. Before the kids can make a move, a stray electric attack strikes the Skull grunts within the bubble. Shocked and dazed, they drop the amulets on the ground. Everyone looks over to see a young girl standing off to the side with a lantern. The girl looks young and innocent, and yet had a terrifying expression on her face. She demands for the grunts to leave. Now. Terrified, they all run off, and the girl's expression softens as she picks up the stolen amulets. Selene happily thanks her for her assistance, and the girl backs away shyly, almost a completely different aura from the one she just had. Hao asks her name, and she introduces herself as Lana. Ash mentions that they should probably get the stolen island amulets back to their owners, and Lana offers to do it for them, stating that they can go ahead and go to Brooklet Hill for their trial. Hao asks how she knew they were island challengers, and Lana points out their own island amulets. She also says that she knew they hadn't taken on the Brooklet Hill trial yet, and figured they were heading that way. Lily asks how she can be so sure of that, and Lana reveals that she is the trial captain, and she remembers everyone who's ever taken on her trial. The kids are shocked, but Ash is nevertheless excited to take on his second trial. Lana points them in the direction of Brooklet Hill, and the kids thank her. Before they leave, she asks if they have a ride pager, and they state that they do. Great, she whispers. She tells them that for their trial, she wants them to use their ride Pokemon to investigate some strange things that have been going on in the water. The group assures her that they will, and they head off. As they leave, Lana whispers to them to be careful. The kids reach the Brooklet Hill and notice that there is definitely something up with the water. There are spots which are randomly splashing all throughout the area. Ash and Hao use the ride pager, which sends over 2 Lapras. The kids get on the Lapras and enter the water. One by one, as they get closer to the splashing areas, water Pokemon jump out to attack them. Ash defeats the Pokemon easily with Pikachu, while Hao struggles to take them down with his Pichu. He often has to swap out to Rowlet to finish the opponents off. Selene starts to worry about Hao and asks if he wants to use her Pokemon again, but he insists to her that he'll be fine. He begins to solely use Rowlet and begins defeating the Pokemon easily. After defeating a Goldeen, a giant whirlpool forms in the middle of the water. All of the kids are confused and terrified, but Lily speculates that it must relate to their trial. The boys have the Lapras go closer to the whirlpool, and suddenly 2 giant figures emerge from the water with a giant splash. An enormous Wishy-Washy jumps out and roars at Hao, while a massive Araquanid crawls out of the water and shrieks at Ash. Both Pokemon have a golden ore around them, so Selene figures that they must be the Totem Pokémon. Everyone is shocked seeing 2 different Pokemon at the same time, since the Verdant Cavern totems only came out one at a time depending on the time of day. The boys don't let this stop them, and they ask Rotomdex about the totems. Rotomdex explains that Wishy-Washy is a water type, while Araquanid is a water and bug type. From this, Ash decides to send out Litten first, while Hao goes with his new Eevee. Litten stands on the edge of the water and Ash commands Ember. Araquanid strikes back with Bubble, which causes steam to shroud the area. Ash orders a Fire Fang, but before the attack can land, a Dewpider leaps out of the water and attaches itself to Litten. Litten tries to shake the Dewpider off, but to no avail. Meanwhile, the Araquanid fires another bubble at Litten. Hao, on the other hand, has Eevee use Double Edge on Wishy-Washy. Wishy-Washy fires a water gun, but coming from the massive Pokemon, it looks more like a hydro pump. Eevee shakes herself off and uses Trump Card. Wishy-Washy is pelted by the attack and seems to be struggling, but this is when an Alomomola jumps from the water and uses Heal Pulse on Wishy-Washy. Hao realizes that as long as Alomomola is here, he'll never take down Wishy-Washy. Meanwhile, Litten is struggling on Ash's side, until he gets an idea. He has Litten ignite the fire on his back to get the Dewpider off. Thankfully, his plan works, and he fires an Ember at the Dewpider. The Dewpider faints, but Totem Araquanid fires a Bubble Beam and takes Litten out. Ash thanks Litten for his hard work, and sends out Rockruff next. Rockruff immediately uses Rock Throw. The super effective attack hits Araquanid for big damage, but Araquanid almost immediately hits a powerful Bubble Beam back. The Totem then uses Infestation, causing Rockruff to take constant damage. Back on Hao's side, Eevee has aimed all of her attacks at Alomomola. She's dealt a lot of damage, but she's also taken a lot as well. Hao has Eevee use Double Edge, which slams into the pink fish, but it seems to just barely hang on. Meanwhile, a double water gun from Wishy-Washy and its ally takes Eevee down. Even though it struggled before, Hao sends out Pichu, hoping it can finish off the exhausted Alomomola. Thankfully, the fish is weak enough that Pichu is able to take it out with just Thunder Shock. Hao calls out to Pichu that he's proud of it for the defeat, and compliments it on how strong it's become. From these words, Pichu begins glowing, and evolves into a Pikachu. Rotomdex looks over Hao's Pikachu closely, and notices that she's a female, due to her heart-shaped tail. Selene remarks how interesting it is that Hao has 2 female Pokemon with heart-shaped tails. Nevertheless, with Pikachu's increased power, she fires off a new powerful electric-type move at Wishy-Washy, which seems to do a lot of damage. Rotomdex says that this new move is Shockwave. Meanwhile, Rockruff has become nearly immobilized and can do nothing but pelt Araquanid with Rock Throw. But Araquanid simply hits back with Bubble Beam. Eventually, it's too much to take, and Rockruff goes down. Ash sends out Pikachu and decides it's time to finish things. He lifts up his Z Crystal and tells Pikachu to end the battle with a Z move. Ash strikes the pose for Breakneck Blitz, and Pikachu unleashes the attack. At an incredible speed, Pikachu rushes in and slams into the Araquanid. The giant spider loses its footing and topples over. Pikachu uses a final Thunderbolt and Araquanid is defeated. On Hao's end, after firing numerous shockwaves at Wishy-Washy, he seems to have the same idea. He has his Pikachu use Breakneck Blitz as well, and she launches herself at the giant fish. It tries to intercept with Water Gun, but the Z move is too strong. Pikachu defeats the totem, and it reverts back to its solo form. Ash and Hao have both won their trials. Out of nowhere, Lana appears and walks up to them. She congratulates Ash and Hao on conquering the trials, and tells them that they can get their Waterium Z crystals from the nearby pedestal. As the boys run off to get them, Lana approaches Selene. She hands her a Waterium Z as well. Selene asks Lana why she's giving it to her when she didn't complete the trial. Lana says that this is her own personal Waterium Z crystal, and she's giving it to Selene as thanks for stopping those Team Skull grunts earlier. If not for her, a bunch of island challengers would have lost their amulets forever, and never been able to complete the challenge. She says that the island guardian Tapu Lele would want someone so willing to protect the island challenge to have it. Selene feels honored and happily accepts the Z crystal. Ash and Hao return with their crystals, and Lana tells everyone that the closest trial will be at Volcano Park, and that it's a fire-type trial, so their Waterium Z should come in handy. Before they part ways, Lana shows the others the pose for the water-type Z move, which she informs them is called Hydro Vortex. She demonstrates the attack with one of the Ride Lapras. All 4 trainers think the move looks amazing, especially Selene. After sending back the Ride Pokemon, the kids thank Lana for their help and head off. Now, let's stop right now, because it's movie time. Unlike my Sword and Shield series, I went into this series fully prepared to incorporate our movies. However, that doesn't mean that it was all easy. If you remember, the Sun and Moon series was the first where instead of getting movies focusing on the actual main characters in the newest region, we started getting alternate universe movies focusing on random plots with not much relevance to the newest generation. In fact, 2 of the movies of this era were basically remakes of original series content. But we're not going to be doing that here, and instead we'll be having more traditional movies of the earlier generations. So this basically means that we need to create original movies from scratch. However, there is one good thing about the Gen 7 movies, which is that they did give us the main Pokemon to focus on for our movies this time around. For this first movie, it's going to be Marshadow. I'll be calling our movie Marshadow the Spectral Thief. So, I'm gonna try to give the briefest, quickest run through of this movie as I can. In an anime-exclusive location on Akala Island, Ash, Selene, Lily, and Hao arrive just in time to participate in the Pokemon Packer Alola Cup. Okay, listen guys, I saw this tweet a while ago which reminded me that the Pokemon Packer sport existed in the Zoroark and Genesect movies, and I thought, why not bring it back for this movie? How come? Because I think it'll work well with this plot. Thank you, Twitter user who brought this back into my brain. Anyway, the gang will all be competing in the tournament. Only unlike the version from the previous films, instead of participating as teams, each participant here is an individual, and they can use 3 of their Pokemon in the round. But unbeknownst to them, a mischievous Pokemon is sneaking around. The earlier rounds go well with the gang's team using good teamwork to make it through. Lily and Hao struggle a little as their Pokemon's teamwork in the sport isn't the best. But something odd happens in one of Hao's matches. As his Pikachu attempts to pass the top to Crabrawler, it's clearly just out of his reach. Then something odd happens. Crabrawler's shadow seems to move on its own, and Crabrawler moves with it. Even though it seemed he should have missed hitting the top, he is just able to hit it, scoring a goal and winning Hao the match. Since the Pokemon are in a huge field far away from the massive audience, no one notices the oddity, and instead it looks like just an incredibly lucky save. Hao is happy, but someone from afar feels something was off. Something similar winds up happening to Lily in her rounds as well. Just when it looks like her Pokemon will fail a pass, their shadows move, and they move them around in such a perfect way that they're able to score enough goals to get a win. The rounds continue with our main cast of trainers making good progress. Selene defeats a trainer named Verity with little issue, and the same is true of Hao against a trainer named Sorrel, but Ash winds up losing to a trainer named Cross. Selene ends up facing Cross in the following round, and she also lost to him, and Hao has the same fate in the quarterfinals. Lily ends up making it to the finals alongside the trainer Cross. Things don't go too well for Lily at first, since Cross's Pokemon have much better synergy and teamwork than her own. But once again, as things get difficult, her Pokemon's shadows move around and guide the Pokemon in such a way that they win the match. Lily is thus the winner of the tournament, but Cross is stunned. He's a high-ranked Pokemon Packer trainer, so he knows that there's no way he could have lost against a rookie. But since there's no proof of foul play, Lily is declared the winner and is awarded a special prize, a Rainbow Wing replica. Cross continues to insist that Lily must have cheated somehow and demands the staff disqualify Lily. But the staff simply wave him off and tell him that he has no proof that Lily cheated, so she's given the prize. Cross is furious and walks off. Meanwhile, the source of Lily's win is revealed to be a mischievous Marshadow who is playing in the shadows. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang decide to go have some malasadas at a nearby shop, and while eating, Lily admires her Rainbow Wing replica. They are soon approached by 2 kids, who they recognize as participants in the Packer tournament, Verity and Sorrel. The kids admire Lily's Rainbow Wing, and say that it almost looks real. They also note that they're from the Sinnoh region, and the reason they came to Alola was to search for a rare Pokemon from that region. The group asks what the Pokemon is, and they explain that it's Marshadow, a Pokemon who controls others through shadows. Sorrel even confides in the group that he believes Marshadow assisted them in their Packer rounds, as he noticed oddness in the way their Pokemon played the game. Lily immediately becomes guilty, as she feels that she wrongfully won, and realizes that Cross was right. Meanwhile, suspicious Cross will be scouting around the Packer Stadium, using his Pokemon to try to find the source of Lily's cheating. Marshadow is watching them and mischievously begins making his Pokemon fight each other. As it laughs over its hijinks, it accidentally comes out of the shadows, allowing Cross to order all of his Pokemon to attack it. Weakened, Marshadow is powerless to defend itself as Cross approaches. He grabs the Pokemon, saying that he knew something was up, and claims that Marshadow will be working for him now. A bit of time passes, and Ash and his friends come across a battlefield, and a public battle is going on. Hal immediately recognizes one of the trainers. It's Cross. His Incineroar effortlessly defeats an opponent's Primarina with an unbelievably powerful flamethrower. Verity isn't all at the Pokemon's power, and the trainer comes up to the group telling them that Cross had been dominating trainers left and right for nearly an hour now. Ash and the gang go over to him, and Lily explains to him that she realized he was right about her not winning fairly, and tries to offer him the Rainbow Wing replica. But Cross claims that he doesn't even care about that fake Rainbow Wing anymore, and he says that he has other things to focus on. He's going to become the strongest trainer ever. Ash and his friends are confused, and Sora requests a battle as he thinks something is odd about just how strong Cross's Pokemon are, and Ash challenges him too. Cross accepts. Cross not only defeats Ash's Pokemon, but also Sora's, Selene's, Verity's, and Hal's with no issue. Everyone can tell things are off, and Pikachu runs over to Cross's backpack, but his Lycanroc blocks the small mouse. Eventually, the bag is knocked over and the injured Marshadow is revealed. Sora and Verity are shocked to see the mythical Pokemon they've been looking for, and Selene demands to know what on earth happened to it. Cross tells them to stay out of it. Marshadow's eyes are weak, but it locks its eyes on the Rainbow Wing replica in Lily's hand. Lily is confused, but offers the wing to the tiny Pokemon since it seems to want it, but Cross snatches it out of her hand. This causes the Rainbow Wing to lose all of its coloring, and Marshadow goes berserk. Marshadow takes control of all the Pokemon in the area, and they start destroying everything. It then becomes clear that this Rainbow Wing replica was no replica. It was real all along. Darkness shrouds over the sky, and then another Pokemon appears. Ho-Oh. The Pokemon looks different though. Its rainbow coloring is dulled, and its eyes are red. It also joins in on the rampage. And my gosh guys, I said I wanted the summary to be brief, didn't I? Okay, speeding things up. Eventually, Ash is able to get the Rainbow Wing back from Cross, and in doing so, it gains its color back. Marshadow and the other possessed Pokemon snap out of their rage, but Ho-Oh is still going berserk. The rampage goes on, and eventually a random trainer tells the group that the way they can stop this madness is to get Marshadow to use its special Z move to defeat Ho-Oh. Ash is given a Marshadow Z from the trainer, and Marshadow transforms into its Zenith form, and uses the Z move Soul-Stealing 7-Star Strike to knock Ho-Oh back to his senses. Ash returns the Rainbow Wing to Ho-Oh, which the bird takes and flies off. Verity and Sora thank Ash and company for their assistance. The trainer gives the Z-Crystal to Marshadow, and the mischievous Pokemon runs off into the shadows. The movie then ends with Ash and the gang getting back to their adventure. Okay, typical Sakura rambling over. That was our first movie. Hope you liked it. Now, let's get back to the main journey, where we can continue on, moving forward to the next trial. While back at the Pokemon Center, the kids get a call from Professor Kukui. After they explain their recent adventures, he congratulates them on passing their second trial. He then says that since they're still nearby, they should check out Royal Avenue and visit the Battle Royale Dome, since there's going to be a tournament soon. It'll be a unique format, and there will be a special prize given to the winner. Ash becomes excited by the idea of a tournament with a special battle format and wants to enter. Hal, who is munching on a malasada, isn't all too interested, but agrees to enter since Ash wants to. Selene asks if the tournament is only for Island Challenge participants, but Kukui explains that it's open for everyone, and he encourages Selene and even Lily to enter as well. Lily says that she isn't too sure about it, but the others persuade her to try it out, and she eventually agrees. The kids arrive at Royal Avenue the next morning, and are surprised by the huge amount of people who turned up for the tournament. There are trainers nearly everywhere, many with island amulets as well. Ash is pumped and can't wait to compete, and Selene is excited as well, since she hasn't been doing much battling lately. The kids make their way to the Battle Royale Dome to register, and when they get there, they're shocked to see a familiar face. It's Gladion, and as soon as Selene makes eye contact with him, she's seeing red. She demands to know what he's doing here, and if Team Skull has plans to mess up the tournament. Gladion says that he doesn't know, as he's there for his own motives. But he says that if Team Skull is smart, they won't bother, considering the strong amount of trainers everywhere. Gladion's words seem reasonable, but Selene still doesn't trust him. Lily asks him what specifically he's doing there, and he says that he's there to train his Pokemon, of course. Selene yells that he better not even think about causing trouble, and that she won't let him win and get this prize. Gladion tells her that he doesn't care about any prize, and he's only there to become stronger. He asks Lily if she's competing, and she says that she is. Gladion seems rather surprised by this, and asks all of them if they've ever even competed in a battle royale before. They admit that they haven't, and out of nowhere, Professor Kukui walks up. He explains how battle royales usually work, but that this tournament will be a bit different. Usually, a battle royale consists of 4 trainers who use 3 Pokemon each, and the royale ends when one trainer has no Pokemon left. And from the remaining 3 trainers, the trainer with the most Pokemon left by the end wins. But this tournament, instead of 4 trainers battling by themselves, they're going to be paired into duo teams, and each trainer will only use 1 Pokemon. The team which loses both of their Pokemon first is eliminated. Once the final 4 are left, they'll face each other in a real traditional battle royale. Ash thinks this sounds interesting, and is very excited to take part in it. Lily asks how the teams will be chosen, and Kukui tells her that it'll be random. He then tells them that he hopes they'll all do well, and he'll be watching on TV. Hal asks the professor why he's not participating, and he says he has other business to take care of. With that, Kukui leaves, and the children officially register for the tournament. The tournament opens later that day, and the participants are shuffled into random teams. To their pleasant surprise, Ash and Hal are teammates. Lily is happy for them, and she tells Selene it would be great if they were on the same team as well. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the case. Selene stares in shock as she looks at the screen and sees that her teammate is Gladion. Gladion walks over at this, and before he can even get a word out, Selene furiously yells that she won't battle with him. But he tells her that the decisions are final, so if she doesn't battle with him, she automatically forfeits. Selene is beyond annoyed, but Ash encourages her, telling her that overall, this is for their Pokemon to become stronger. She's still upset, but decides to accept it. After all, if they make it to the finals, she can defeat him in the final battle royale. Lily, meanwhile, is paired up with a boy named Ilio. He tells her that he's only just recently begun his island challenge, so he isn't the best battler, but he hopes they can do well. Lily tells him that she's also a novice battler and will try to help out as best as she can. Lily introduces Ilio to her friends, and he introduces them to his partner, Dartrix. As soon as Hal's Rowlet sees his evolved form, he instantly glares at him. Hal says that it's great that the Pokemon look to already be friends, but Selene says that they look more like rivals. In the back waiting rooms, Gladion encounters Selene. He asks her how Lily has been doing. Selene angrily yells at him that Lily is disgusted by how he associates himself with Team Skull. Gladion tells her that he knows it bothers her that he works with Team Skull, but he believes it's for the best. Selene says that since they're forced to be battle partners, that she deserves an explanation. Why does he work with Team Skull? What could they be doing to benefit him? Gladion informs her that Team Skull is made up of Island Challenge rejects. Their boss was never able to complete his Island Challenge, so he recruited fellow Island Challenge failures to form Team Skull with him. They work together to ruin Island trials for other challengers, since if they can't complete it, they feel no one should. Selene asks how he can work for such terrible people who are trying to ruin things for everyone else. Gladion explains that despite Team Skull's behavior, they're all really weak trainers, who usually fail in their Island trial sabotage attempts, hence why he barely sees them as a threat. But he tells her that she should rest assured that if they ever take things too far, he'll be the first to stop them. Selene still isn't sure if she can trust him, but wants to keep things civil for the sake of Lily. But she does have one question for Gladion. Wait, you mentioned a leader. Who is it? Who's Team Skull's leader? Don't you even think about it. You'd never be able to beat him, Gladion says sternly. With that, Selene becomes upset, demanding to know who the leader is and where they are. But Gladion refuses to answer, telling her to just focus on the tournament. The first day of battles begins, and a man named the Masked Royal appears as the main announcer of the event. He appears with a Pokemon standing behind him. Rotondex notes that this Pokemon is an Incineroar, the final evolution of Litten. The Masked Royale says that he's a Pokemon Battle Royale champion, and he's excited to see what these challengers will bring. Ash, Hal, and Lily think the Masked Royale looks cool, but Selene feels something is oddly familiar about him. The Masked Royale announces to everyone that there will be a very special prize for the winner of the tournament, and Ash wonders what this prize could be. The Masked Royale then allows the tournament to commence. Ash and Hal fare pretty well in their first match without too many problems. The only issue is that Ash led most of the battle, with Hal having a more supportive role, rarely ever making a command before Ash. Gladion knows this, and after the battle ends, he tells Hao that he should be more active in battles and take them more seriously for the sake of his teammate. Hao responds rather casually that battles are just for fun, and even if they lost, it would have been fine. Gladion says that he's sure Ash wouldn't have felt the same way, but doesn't push the issue. Lily and Ilio fared well enough in their first battle, as their first opponents weren't all too powerful. Snowy's attacks were enough to keep their opponents at bay, while Dartrix finished them all off. But Lily worries about how things will go in the later battles, especially as the opponents become stronger. In Selene and Gladion's first battle, things don't go so well right off the bat. Gladion sends out his Porygon to battle, while Selene sends out Ariel. The moment Ariel sees Gladion, she attacks the Porygon that was in front of him. Selene freaks out, immediately fearing disqualification. But the Mask Royale doesn't seem to have much of an issue, laughing loudly and saying that the Popplio has a fiery spirit, and he's excited to see the battle. Gladion tells Selene that she stands no chance against Team Skull's boss if this is how her Pokemon behave. Selene is naturally upset, but agrees that he has a point. Even if she doesn't like Gladion, they're teammates for now, and need to work together. Their opponents are using a Trumbeak and an Alolan Geodude. It shouldn't be a difficult battle. Ariel goes for Bubble Beam against the Geodude, but it avoids the attack and fires back with a Thunder Punch. Trumbeak also aims a Bullet Seed at the little Popplio, and Selene is upset at being ganged up on. But right before the attacks can hit, Gladion has Porygon jump in front of Ariel and use Protect to shield them both. He then commands a Zap Cannon, which, aimed at Trumbeak, takes the bird out in a single hit. Not pleased at being saved by a Team Skull member, Selene decides to show him what she can do. It's Z-move time. With her brand new Waterium Z, Selene strikes the pose for Hydro Vortex along with Ariel. A massive blast of water is shot at the Geodude, and the Pokemon has no way to avoid the attack. Geodude also falls in a single hit, giving Selene and Gladion the win. The Mask Royale compliments them on an amazing victory, and remarks that he's excited for the next round of battles. The next day sees our main quartet continue to move forward. Ash and Hao are pitted against a trainer with an Oricorio and an Alolan Meowth. Hao is debating which Pokemon he wants to use, but the moment Ash decides to go with Pikachu, Hao sends his out. In the stands, Selene points out that the Oricorio Ash and Hao are battling looks different from hers. Rotomdex tells her that Oricorio can change forms depending on the nectar it eats on Alola's different islands. Lily and Gladion are at her side, intently watching the battle. The battle winds up going very similar to the first one. Ash leads the battle with Hao pretty much following in his actions. The two Pikachu gang up on Oricorio for a quick knockout. With Meowth all alone, its trainer tries a last-ditch attempt to get in control with a Z-move, Black Hole Eclipse. The two Pikachu hold onto the edges of the stadium in a desperate attempt to stay in the game. Hao is helpless and calls to Ash for help, so Ash has Pikachu fire an Electro Ball into the vortex right as the electric mice lose their grip. Pikachu fires the strongest Electro Ball he ever has into the vortex. As the attack flies into the black hole, to everyone's shock, the Electro Ball explodes into electrified net, which blocks the vortex and keeps both Pikachu from being pulled in. The crowd is amazed as Lily comments that Pikachu just used the move Electro Web. Ash is both surprised and thrilled by a new move, so he commands it again. The attack is launched at Meowth, who is trapped and hurt by the electric webbing, so Hao orders a shockwave to finish off the immobilized cat, which gives him and Ash the win. Lily and Selene cheer from the stands, while Gladion remarks that once again, Hao over-relied way too much on Ash for most of the battle, and had it not been for Ash's quick thinking and the luck of his Pikachu's new move, they may have lost. Selene expresses annoyance at his comment, but Lily remarks that he has a point. Lily and Ilio are matched up against a strong pair of trainers next, with a Jangmo-o and a Mareanie. Cleffy effortlessly takes out Jangmo-o thanks to her Fairy-type moves, including Disarming Voice. But she takes a lot of damage from Marienie's Poison-type moves. Thankfully, Ilio's Mudbray is strong enough to take Mareanie out with high horsepower. Selene and Gladion are paired against two trainers with an Oranguru and a Drampa. Selene chooses Honey for the battle, while Gladion uses Porygon once more. Selene tries to take over the battle by ordering Fairy Winds and Struggle Bugs non-stop. While Honey does big damage to her opponents, she takes a lot of damage as well, being that Selene is so focused on ordering attacks that she barely tells Honey to dodge. Additionally, the Oranguru uses its Instruct move to get Honey to use attacks Selene didn't want, such as aiming a Struggle Bug at Porygon instead of Oranguru. Thankfully, Gladion's Pokemon is quick enough to dodge. The Oranguru launches a Psychic at Gladion's Porygon, but oddly enough, the attack seems to do no damage. The Porygon then launches a new move Selene has never seen before, Night Daze. The powerful attack defeats the Oranguru in a single hit. Trampo then hits Porygon with a Dragon Pulse, but Porygon glows brightly as soon as it's hit, and its true form is revealed. It's a Zorua. Selene and the opponents are shocked by this, and Selene angrily asks Gladion why he didn't tell her he was actually using a Zorua, but he tells her that he prefers to keep his strategies to himself. Nevertheless, with only one opponent left, Honey and Zorua pretty easily overpower Drampa and win the match. After the battle is over, Selene scolds Gladion for being a poor teammate by not informing her of his plans before the battle. But Gladion simply tells her that with an attitude like that, she'll never come even close to beating Team Skull's leader, because he's one for using sneaky battle tactics. Selene becomes intrigued by this, since she still wants to learn more about this Team Skull boss. But Gladion brushes her off, saying that he won't tell her anything about the boss unless she can prove her strength. This of course angers Selene, but she says that she'll just make sure that she'll defeat him in their eventual battle. The rounds continue the next day, and this is where things start to get serious. It's the quarterfinals, and Lily and Ilio are matched against Ash and Hao. Selene is upset to see her friends have to now battle each other, while Gladion comments that it was inevitable that this would happen as long as they kept winning. The respective teams wish each other good luck and head to the battlefield. Ilio sends out his Dartrix, and Lily, knowing how strong Ash is in particular, goes with her strongest Pokemon, Sandy. Seeing that Ilio is using his Dartrick, Hao chooses to use his Rowlet. Ash meanwhile sends out Litten as a perfect counter to both opponents. Things between Rowlet and Dartrix are fierce, with Hao starter wanting to prove himself to his evolved form. He launches powerful Leafage and Razor Leaf attacks, but Ilio's Dartrix has stronger moves, like Leaf Blade and Aerial Ace, to hit Rowlet hard. Sandy also landed a few strong Ice Ball attacks throughout the match. In the end, a clash of Z moves sets their fate. A Breakneck Blitz versus a Supersonic Sky Strike. The Pokemon collide, but in the end it's Dartrix who gets the win. That said, he's severely weakened, so much so that an Ember from Litten can take him out. Overall, Lily spent most of the battle trying to desperately keep Sandy safe from any fire attacks, but in doing so she was barely able to participate in the battle. Sandy was only able to hit Rowlet with that single Ice Ball earlier in the match, before a Fire Fang took him down. With Ash being the last person to have a Pokemon still standing, he and Hao win the battle, knocking Lily and Ilio out of the competition. Selene and Gladion win their next battle easily, which only leaves them, Ash and Hao, remaining as the final four. At the end of the day, the Masked Royal announces that the final round of the tournament will be held tomorrow, and it'll be a true Battle Royale. 4 trainers battling each other with 3 Pokemon each, and the Battle Royale ends when only 1 trainer is left with usable Pokemon. The finals take place the next day, and this is the moment Selene has been waiting for. No longer is she forced to work with Gladion, and now she's free to battle against him. Hao is nervous now that he can no longer rely on Ash as a battle partner, but Ash simply tells Hao to do his best. The Masked Royale announces the 4 finalists who will be participating in the Battle Royale. Selene yells at Gladion, telling him that he's going down now. He's all by himself. Meanwhile, she, Ash, and Hao are all ready to take him down. Gladion reminds her that they're all supposed to be battling each other, but Selene points out that there's no rule that they can't all team up to focus on one opponent. The Masked Royale agrees that this is true, and states that he's excited to see how this battle will go. Gladion is actually the first to call out a Pokemon, and it's one that Ash has never seen before. The Rotom Pokédex informs him that it's Lycanroc, the evolved form of Rockruff. Selene remembers having battled Gladion's Rockruff before, so she's surprised to see that it's evolved already. After receiving this information, Ash excitedly sends out his own Rockruff. He points out Gladion's Pokemon, telling Rockruff that this is what it'll look like once it evolves. Rockruff growls angrily at the evolved Pokemon, ready to prove itself. Selene then sends out Ariel, while Hao goes with his Crabrawler. The Masked Royale then declares for the battle to commence. Selene starts off the battle basically demanding for Ash and Hao to assist her in focusing on taking down all of Gladion's Pokemon first. Hao is game for the idea, wanting to also eliminate the Team Skull member, but for his own benefit. Ash is already a force to be reckoned with, so taking Gladion out of the battle will just make things easier. And Ash is perfectly fine with this idea as well, mainly since he wants a chance at battling Gladion. Ash, Hao, and Selene all aim their attacks at Gladion's Lycanroc. Bubble Beam, Rock Throw, and Water Gun fly toward the Pokemon. Gladion orders Lycanroc to dodge and then attack all of the other Pokemon with a Cell Rock. The Rock Wolf is fast enough to actually avoid all of the attacks and then strike each one with a powerful attack. Hao decides to go in for a Power Up Punch, which successfully strikes Lycanroc for heavy damage. Rockruff rushes in for a bite and latches onto Lycanroc's tail. Gladion orders his Pokemon to shake Rockruff off, but while this is happening, Ariel fires a water gun directly into Lycanroc's face. Lycanroc shakes itself off, and Gladion commands a crunch at the Popplio. Before it can land its attack, House Brawler intercepts it with a Crab Hammer, knocking the Pokemon out. The Mask Royale commends the teamwork by Ash, Hau, and Selene, and tells them that this is certainly an interesting match. He wonders if Gladion will be able to recover. Lily silently feels bad for her brother, but wonders if he has any sort of plan to get past this. Selene taunts Gladion, asking if he's afraid since he's outnumbered. Gladion barely seems to care, stating that he doesn't care if they all are against him. This is just training for him. He then sends in his Porygon. Selene laughs, saying that she and the others will take down Porygon the same way they took out Lycanroc. Once again, Gladion is unimpressed. He tells Selene that she's nowhere near strong enough to be this cocky. Selene is angered by this comment, but before she can say anything back, Gladion raises his arm up, revealing his Z-ring. The others are stunned as Gladion strikes a familiar pose. He commands Breakneck Blitz, and Porygon charges forward. Ash yells out that he can play the same game. He copies the same actions presented by Gladion, and orders Breakneck Blitz from his Rockruff. The Pokemon dash toward each other and collide in the center of the ring. A huge explosion rings out, and in the end, both Pokemon are hurt, though Rockruff seems to have taken far more damage. The Pokemon can barely stay at its feet. Out of nowhere, and to everyone's shock, Hau orders a power-up punch against Rockruff, and a single powerful punch finishes the Rock Dog off. Everyone is stunned, and Selene angrily asks Hau why he did that. Hau nervously says that he's sorry, but they're still technically opponents in this match, and he knew this might have been his only chance to beat one of Ash's Pokemon. Selene furiously yells that he could have waited until they finished off Gladion before doing that. But Ash tells Selene that Hau is right. This is a battle royale after all, and he's not mad. Gladion says that he's actually impressed that Hau was the first one to attack one of his friends. He then tells Selene that she would benefit from not being so caught up on just beating him. But Selene tells Gladion to shut it. Ash has to send out his next Pokemon, and he goes with Pikachu. Selene orders an Icy Wind at Porygon, and Pikachu aims Thunderbolt at the same Pokemon. Porygon uses Protect to block off taking any damage. Gladion then commands Zap Cannon toward Ariel. Selene knows that Ariel isn't the fastest, so she only has one line of defense. She strikes the pose for Hydro Vortex and commands the move from her Popplio. The attacks collide and both take huge damage. Ash immediately calls for Electroweb to trap and zap the water-soaked Porygon, and this is enough to take it down. Meanwhile, Hau once again takes his chance to finish off a weakened Pokemon, and a Crab Hammer takes out Ariel. Selene once again yells at Hau, but this time it's the Mask Royale who reminds her that Hau isn't doing anything against the rules. Gladion taunts Selene once more, telling her that this is her problem. She demands to know what he means, and he tells her that she doesn't have her priorities straight. All she wants is just to beat him, and is completely neglecting the point of the battle. She tells him to be quiet, and she doesn't care about any of that. He only has one Pokemon left, and she's about to finish him off. Both Selene and Gladion send out their next Pokemon at the same time. He calls for his Pokemon No, and she sends out Meadow. The group knows just how strong this Pokemon is, so they all decide to attack it at once. Selene orders an Air Cutter. Meanwhile, Pikachu goes in for an Iron Tail, and Hau calls for Bubble Beam. All of the attacks are aimed at No, and he tells the Pokemon to use Agility to dodge. Ash is shocked that such a large, bulky Pokemon could move so fast, but he uses Quick Attack to try to compete with the other Pokemon's speed. Gladion attempts to quickly intercept the attack, and he calls for Night Daze. The move is executed and blasts Pikachu backward. At this moment, the audience and Selene furiously realize what's going on. Gladion tells No to follow up the attack with Punishment, which hits Pikachu hard. This causes the large Pokemon to become paralyzed from static. Mallow rushes in for an Acrobatics attack, which lands, and from here the truth is revealed. Mallow morphs into Zorua. The Mask Royale expresses his shock and amazement over Gladion using his Zorua to disguise itself once again without detection. Using the same trick twice in the same tournament is risky, yet Gladion pulled it off well. Ash commends Gladion on surprising them like that, and he tells Pikachu to use Iron Tail. Zorua fights back with Punishment and the Pokemon collide, neither willing to give an inch. This is where Selene commands an Acrobatics to finish off Zorua, and Hau commands Crab Hammer to finish off Pikachu. The other Pokemon are unable to dodge while still attacking each other, but at the last minute, Gladion calls for an additional Night Daze. All Pokemon wind up getting hit hard, and Pikachu, Meadow, and Zorua faint. With this, Gladion is eliminated from the match, due to having no Pokemon left who can battle. Selene is thrilled and cheers over the fact that they knocked Gladion out of the tournament. Gladion makes no initial comment. He simply returns his Pokemon, stares at Selene, then asks, "Okay, what now?" Selene doesn't know what he means, and the Mask Royale addresses the crowd. "Alright, Challenger Gladion is now eliminated. Meanwhile, Challengers Ash and Selene only have one Pokemon left they can use. But Challenger Hao hasn't lost a single Pokemon yet, and his Crabrawler is still going strong from all those power-up punches. Ash and Selene call out their final Pokemon, Litten and Honey. Selene angrily looks at Gladion, knowing he's expecting her to lose, but she'll show him. At this point, she knows it makes the most sense to attack Hao's Crabrawler, and Ash seems to feel the same. Ash calls for Fire Fang against Crabrawler, and Selene rushes to attack the Pokemon as well. She orders a Draining Kiss. But at this point, Hao is ready to end things. He lifts up his Z-Ring, which is now sporting his new Waterium Z. Ash and Selene can only look on in shock, as Hao does the pose for Hydro Vortex. A massive wave is launched from each of Crabrawler's claws and slams into Litten and Honey. Neither of them stand a chance against the power of the Crab, and both of them are defeated in a single shot. Hao is thus deemed the winner of the Battle Royale tournament. The young boy cheers, thrilled over his victory. Ash congratulates his friend, as does Selene, but she can only look over to Gladion, his piercing stare infuriating her. The Mask Royale congratulates Hao, and tells him that he will be rewarded with a special prize. He tells the trainers that they can recover their Pokemon at a nursing station backstage, and afterwards there will be an awards ceremony for everyone. Backstage, while waiting for their Pokemon to finish treatment, Lily has rejoined the others and commends all of them for battling so well. Ilio even joins her and says what great battlers all of them are. He says that he hopes he can battle them again one day. Ash says that it would be great as Ilio heads off. But just as he leaves, Gladion approaches them, and his eyes are on Selene. Lily approaches her brother and tells him that despite everything he battled well, and Gladion thanks his sister for her words. He then looks Selene directly in the eyes and says that he's disappointed that Lily chose to travel with such a reckless trainer. Selene becomes angry and refutes his statement, and says that at least she has real friends who help her and isn't working with scumbags like Team Skull. Gladion speaks up again. I may work with Team Skull, but at least I'm not selfish. I know what my priorities are. I'm fighting to become stronger for my Pokemon. Meanwhile, all you cared about was defeating me. You didn't even care about your own Pokemon or your friends out there or what they wanted. You just wanted to say that you beat a Team Skull member. Well, congratulations. You got me eliminated from a measly tournament at the cost of using your friends and trying to control a tournament battle. With this, Gladion walks off, Selene in so much shock that she's unable to speak. Lily calls out to her brother, but he only responds that he hopes she'll be safe with Ash and Hao because Selene is not trustworthy. He adds that he meant what he said. Selene has no chance of taking on Team Skull's boss with the way she behaves. Selene is speechless, and so are the others. The silence is then broken by the Mask Royale announcing for the 4 finalists to return to the stadium for the awards ceremony. Hao runs off with Ash trailing behind him, but Selene is motionless. Lily asks if she's okay. She says that she knows Gladion is harsh with his words, but that she shouldn't feel bad. Selene quietly says that she's fine, and that they should head back to the arena. Lily can tell that she's upset, but makes her way over anyway. In the center of the ring, the Mask Royale and his Incineroar are standing with Hao and his Pokemon. Ash, Selene, and Gladion are standing behind them with their Pokemon as well. He congratulates all the trainers who participated in the tournament, and then specifically congratulates Hao for winning the entire thing. Hao says that he couldn't have done it without his initial teammate, Ash, and thanks him as well. The Mask Royale then tells Hao that it's time to choose his prize. Wait, choose? Yes, Royale tells him. For his victory, he can either have a special battle against the Mask Royale himself, or choose a mystery victory prize. Ash's Litten then begins meowing loudly at the Mask Royale's Incineroar. Royale looks at it and smiles, saying that it looks like Litten would like to battle, and he seems to have a fiery spirit. Ash picks up the kitten and tells him that while he'd love a battle against the Mask Royale, they didn't win. Hao did. Litten becomes slightly saddened by this, but still locks his eyes on Incineroar, who looks back at the small Pokemon. Hao tells the Mask Royale that, right now, he doesn't think he'd be able to give him the best battle, since he's still a relatively new trainer, so he'll take the mystery prize instead. Royale understands what he means, and says that there is no shame in backing out of a battle. He then presents Hao with a bright green box, and tells him that he can open it as his prize. Everyone is in awe, wondering what could be inside the box. Hao opens it, and it turns out to be a Thunderstone. Immediately, his Pikachu's eyes glimmer upon seeing the stone. She jumps up and wants to hold it, but Hao is a bit hesitant, because he knows what the stone will do. He doesn't know if he wants to evolve his Pikachu right away. Ash tells Hao that he shouldn't feel pressure to evolve his Pikachu if he doesn't want to, and the Mask Royale agrees. Hao decides that he'll wait on evolving Pikachu and thanks Royale for the prize. With this, the closing ceremony ends. Outside of the Battle Royale Dome, Ash and the others are congratulating Hao on his prize. But right behind them is Gladion, and he says the following to Hao. You were right out there. I was. About Ash. You said you could never have won without Ash. You were right. If you weren't able to leech off his victories, you never would have made it to the finals. This upsets Hao, and he argues back that he thinks he battled well on his own, especially in the final match. You were only able to get that far because your friend was so intent on beating me, and even now, you won't evolve your Pikachu. Why? Just because Ash said you shouldn't? This truly angers Hao and the others. Ash yelled at Gladion to knock it off, and even Lily tells Gladion that he should drop it. Hao, on the other hand, reaches into his bag and pulls out a Pokeball. You really think that? I'll show you. Hao angrily sends out his Pikachu and takes out the Thunderstone. You want it? Everyone is stunned by this, including Gladion. Pikachu reaches up and touches the stone. In an instant, she's surrounded by a bright light, and she evolves into an Alolan Raichu. Oddly enough, Gladion barely reacts to what just happened. He simply tells Hao that he surprised him. He adds that he hopes he'll take his battles more seriously from now on. Hao only looks back angrily at the other trainer. Gladion then begins to walk away, but he soon turns back to look at the group of trainers. His eyes land on Selene, who's barely said a word all evening. He then throws something over to her, but it stops in midair before he can hit her. Everyone is surprised by this until the Rotom Dex knows that it was Alolan Raichu's doing, as she's now a psychic type. Hey, what's your problem? I got that from Team Skull's leader, is all he says before he walks off. Raichu brings the item closer to everyone, and one thing is clear. It's a Z crystal. The gang spends the night at a Pokemon Center and decides to head out the next morning. Upon leaving the center in the morning, they only make it a few steps away until their attention is grabbed. They hear the sound of something falling on the ground, and when they look over, they see a trainer with several boxes on the ground in front of him. They rush over to help the trainer, who thanks them. He says that he was trying to transport these items, but didn't realize how many there were. Ash says that they can help him move the boxes, but he says he was actually going to fly them a fair distance away to Volcano Park. Lily asks what the packages are and what he was going to do with them on Volcano Park. The trainer says that he is the trial captain of the area and that he was transporting some medical supplies for the island challengers who climb up the mountain since there isn't a Pokemon Center around there, and Team Skull Grunts have been recently attacking island challengers and their Pokemon. Hao then finally realizes that he recognizes this guy, Kiawe, the Fire-type trial captain. Ash is beyond happy to meet another trial captain and asks if they can go with him to Volcano Park, since they were planning on taking on their next trial. Kiawe agrees, so long as they can help him with the packages. The kids use the ride pager to call on a few ride Pokemon, and they receive a Garchomp and Flygon. Kiawe then sends out his Charizard. They distribute the packages amongst each other and then fly over to the Volcano Park. Once they arrive, Kiawe points them to the location of the trial site. He says that he can guide them in the trial if they're ready. Ash eagerly says that he's ready, and Hal agrees. Before anyone can say another word, Selene says that she wants to stay behind, to keep an eye on things in case any Team Skull members show up. Kiawe seems concerned over this, as he knows the Team Skull Grunts tend to fight dirty, but Lily informs him that Selene is a really strong trainer, and was the best battler at the Melee Trainer School. She also adds in that Selene has taken on a lot of Team Skull members already, and has defeated them. Kiawe is impressed by this, and agrees to let Selene stay back if she wishes. He asks what Lily will do, and she says that she'll stay with Selene just in case. The girls then wish their friends luck as they all head up the mountain. As they trek up the mountain, Hal asks Kiawe what the trial is going to be. Kiawe tells them that they'll have to use their observational skills to learn the traditional dance of Akala Island. Ash asks why, and Kiawe says they'll see when they get to the top. Well, once they get there, Ash and Hal are stunned. A huge crowd of Pokemon are prancing around, and they look extremely familiar and yet different. The Rotom Pokédex identifies them as Alola Marowak, and explains that they are Ghost and Fire types. Ash is surprised to see the drastically different form of Marowak. The Pokemon are all dancing, twirling their fire-coated bones in a mesmerizing display. Kiawe tells them that these Pokemon are doing a traditional Akala Island dance that Ash and Hal will need to memorize for the island trial. As the trainers look back over the group of Pokemon, one particular specimen stands out from the crowd. This Pokemon is attempting to also dance, but isn't faring too well. As the Pokemon trips over its feet, it notices Kiawe. Upon seeing the trial captain, The Pokemon eagerly runs up to him. It's a Cubone, and it nuzzles Kiawe's leg as soon as it reaches him. Hao comments that the Pokemon is adorable, and Kiawe explains that his younger sister actually found the Cubone one day, and she seemed to have been an orphan, so they took her in and even gave her a name, Crystal. Eventually, Kiawe started bringing her to the trial side, and she immediately became friendly with the Alola Marowak of the Volcano. She spends most of her time practicing her dance with the Marowak, but she still isn't the best. Hao tells Cubone that he thinks she dances really well, and she'll probably become an amazing dancer one day. Crystal's eyes glimmer, and she happily twirls her bone in glee. Ash then asks about the trial and what they need to do. Kiawe explains that the Marowak will perform 2 nearly identical dances, and Ash and Hao will need to point out the difference. This will test their memory and observance, 2 traits valued by the Island Guardian Tapu Lele. The kids agree to the challenge and get started. The Marowak dance troupe performs a quick dance which the boys observe intently. Kiawe asks if they're ready for the second dance, and they confirm that they are. The second dance is completed, and Ash is actually stumped. Both dances look the same to him, and he isn't sure what the difference was. Hao, meanwhile, thinks he knows the answer, but he's hesitant. After all, if a great trainer like Ash didn't figure it out immediately, surely Hao wouldn't be able to. He starts to doubt himself. And yet, he really has nothing to lose. But before he can answer, Ash finally speaks up. He says that he thinks that the first dance began with the Marowak twirling their bones to the left, while the second dance had them twirling them to the right. This breaks Hao. He was wrong? I mean, is it a surprise? Of course he was. He's not surprised that Ash would be better at something like this, too. But still, something doesn't seem right. He's sure he noticed the difference correctly. Interesting answer. Hao, what do you think? Hao isn't sure what to say. He still feels that he was right, and he doesn't feel he has much to lose. So he says that, from what he saw, one of the Marowak in the back row ended the first dance holding its bone in the air, but in the second dance, it was on the ground. Kiawe is silent, staring at Hao intently, then to Ash. Kiawe smiles and tells them that they are both correct. This shocks the boys, and Ash wonders how they can both be correct. Kiawe then reveals that there were actually a few variations in the dances that the boys could have noticed. Hao is confused, and he really feels like this makes the trial misleading. But Kiawe states that in addition to testing their memory, the purpose of the trial was to instill confidence in them, to prove to themselves that their answers were correct. He says that they passed with flying colors. Ash and Hao then smile and give each other a high five. After this, and right as they do, the ground begins to shake. All the Marowak flee, and Crystal latches to Kiawe's leg. 2 giant glowing Pokemon jump out at them, and the boys presume they are the totems. In front of Ash stands a Pokemon he's not seen before, but Rotomdex lists it as a Salazzle, the evolved form of Salandit. Meanwhile, the Pokemon in front of Hao is more familiar. It's a giant Alola Marowak. Just like the last trial, there are 2 different totems. Kiawe tells the boys that this is the first time he's seen both totems come out at once, and he's excited to see these battles. Ash and Hao look at each other and grin. Hey Hao, how about we see who can defeat their totem the fastest? Hao is unsure, but he quickly puts himself up to the task. He wants to prove that he's just as good a battler as Ash. You've got it, and I'm gonna win. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Selene and Lily are standing guard. The girls have sent all of their Pokemon out in advance, just in case anyone from Team Skull makes their appearance. I hope those creeps don't show up here. It's so annoying how they feel the need to intrude on everyone's trials, Lily says. Selene doesn't respond though. Lily calls out to her, and Selene apologizes for not hearing her. Lily asks if anything is wrong, and Selene admits that she still has Gladion's words on her mind. She's starting to think he was right. Maybe she isn't cut out to stop Team Skull. After all, the only reason she defeated him in the Battle Royale tournament is because she forced Ash and Hao to help her. Lily tells Selene not to take her brother's words to heart. He probably has her best interest in mind, but unfortunately, he tends to have a rather harsh way of expressing himself, especially when it's something important to him. Selene doesn't get the chance to react to Lily's words as Snowy lets out a loud yelp. The girls look over, only to see an air cutter and a flame burst heading directly at them. Sandy intercepts the air cutter with Metal Claw, while Ariel uses Water Gun to stop the flame burst. Lily and Selene thank their Pokemon before they see the source of the attack. Standing in front of them are not only a horde of Team Skull members, but also a woman with pink and yellow hair in similar attire. Team Skull, we knew you'd show up, Selene yells. That's her, sis. That's the one who's been messing up all of our plans, one grunt yells at the tall woman. This is the brat who's been bullying my brothers and sisters, the woman says. Brothers and sisters, who even are you? Lily demands. The name is Plumeria, and no one picks on these dummies but me. The Skullgrunts cheer her on, oblivious to the insult. So you're Team Skull's boss? Selene asks. No, but you can call me the second in command, and you're both going to pay for defying Team Skull. Now, everyone, attack! All of the grunts send out a huge array of Pokemon, and a gigantic brawl ensues. Lily is clutching her bag closely, desperate to protect Nebby. Moon floats around her, shooting off Venoshocks at any Pokemon that come near its trainer. Lily is soon approached by a grunt. She expresses interest in the unique Pokemon that she's not seen before, and she wants it for herself. Lily recognizes the girl as one of the members who tried to take her bag before, and she instantly tells her to leave her alone. She orders Cleffy to use Psychic to keep the opponents at bay. The grunt, meanwhile, tries to gang up her Pokemon against Lily, but Lily's Pokemon are far stronger than they appear. Even Moon, who hasn't had much training, is able to handle most of the Team Skull Pokemon. At the same time, from afar, someone is watching in the distance. Solaria, I'm recording data on Poipole, owned by the trainer right now, is clearly a very strong Pokemon and is battling for the girl with the utmost loyalty. That's certainly interesting. I wonder if she has a connection to the Ultra Beast. Keep an eye on her, Jules. Got it. Plumeria normally isn't one to back down, but she can see just how badly they're being beaten. Still, she orders her subordinates to stay strong. Meanwhile, Selene has just about had it with these guys. She needs to do something to take a huge amount of Pokemon out at once. But what? She thinks a Z move. Hydro Vortex might work, but at that moment, Selene remembers the Z Crystal Gladion just gave her. Rotom Dex had told her what it was, and she thinks it would be perfect for now. Alright honey, let's go, Selene says, calling upon her cutie fly. Selene strikes the pose the Rotom Dex had shown her online. Use Savage Spin Out. Plumeria can only hang her mouth open in disbelief as she sees what's happening before her. Honey fires a massive web at the entire group of Team Skull Pokemon, wrapping them up in what can only resemble the largest cocoon known to mankind. She spins the cocoon around in the air several times while becoming coated in a green aura. Honey then slams the cocoon into the ground before flying straight into it. All is silent as the cocoon bursts, sending the Pokemon hurtling into the air before they're slamming into the ground unconscious. Everyone is stunned by the tiny Pokemon's power, and the little cutie fly cheers happily. Before Selene can even praise her, Honey starts to glow. She evolves into Ribombee in the blink of an eye, giving one final surprise. The Team Skull grunts return their fainted Pokemon as they rush up to their big sister Admin in shock. Big sis, that move, wasn't it? You? How did you learn that move? Where did you get that Z Crystal? It's none of your business, but if you must know, your friend Gladion gave it to me. Gladion? That little... Plumeria's face becomes contorted in rage, something which frightens Selene and Lily. This isn't over. We'll deal with you next time. Plumeria and the grunts retreat, with Selene hollering at them that she'll just defeat them once again. Lily, on the other hand, is confused and worried for her brother. She doesn't like that he's working with Team Skull, but she doesn't want him on their bad side either. She snapped out of her thoughts as she hears a sound in the nearby bushes. But when she looks over, no one seems to be there. Selene snaps out of her thoughts, remarking that it seems Team Skull are far from giving up, but at least they're still not much of a threat. She also praises Honey once again for the new evolution. Lily also compliments the adorable little bug on using a Z move for the first time. With the threats out of the way, they decide they can venture up to the path to meet up with Ash and How. In the bushes, Dole scolds Sassy for being so noisy as she almost got them caught. She apologizes and says that with the coast cleared, they can head back to their base to update Fico and Solaria on their recent findings. Dose agrees to this, and the two quietly make their way off the Volcano base. Ash and How's totem battles are underway, and the race is on. How's Alolan Raichu, unfortunately, is not faring well against the Totem Marowak. Since she's weak to Ghost-type moves now, she's taking hard hits from Hex. That said, she's also much faster in her evolved form, as she can now use her psychic powers to fly through the air. She lands a strong shockwave, which does a heavy hit to the totem, but Marowak summons its ally, a normal-sized Salazzle, and she launches a Flame Burst, which has Raichu shrieking in pain. Hao calls Raichu back and sends in Crabrawler. Kiawe knows that this is an odd choice considering the typing of Crabrawler versus his opponents, but soon the trial captain sees why Hao made this choice. Hao calls for Bubble Beam, and Crabrawler aims a claw at each Salazzle and Marowak, striking them both for heavy damage. On Ash's side, Pikachu fires an Electro Web to trap Totem Salazzle, and while she takes a strong shock, she breaks free by igniting the webbing. She uses Toxic, then calls upon a Salandit ally. Said ally then strikes with Venoshock, dealing major damage to Pikachu. Ash orders Pikachu to use Thunderbolt on Salazzle, which she tries to dodge, but fails due to Pikachu's speed. It's clear that Salazzle sees this Pikachu as a threat, so she pulls out a move that'll surely give her the advantage. Attract. Kiawe notes that this is a common tactic used by the Totem Salazzle to take trainers off guard, and that is the case here. Flustered, Ash commands Pikachu to dodge, but there's really nowhere to run as the hearts surround him. Pikachu becomes infatuated and unwilling to make a single move against the Totem. Salandit then uses another Venoshock, and Salazzle a Flame Burst to take Pikachu out of the battle. He flies backward after taking both attacks and lands in front of Ash. Ash collects his injured mouse and uses an antidote on him. He then tells him to get a good rest at his side. Ash then looks over to Hao, who at first glance seems to be faring better than him. He becomes nervous and tries to get back into the game. Hao's Crabrawler has done heavy damage to both Totem Marowak and the ally Salazzle. Marowak uses a Flame Wheel, which pushes the crab back, but he tries to keep his footing. Hao orders a close-range Crab Hammer, which does heavy damage. Ally Salazzle uses Poison Gas, poisoning Crabrawler and causing him to become overpowered by Marowak. The Totem then uses a follow-up Hex, which takes Crabrawler down. Kiawe notes that this is how Totem Marowak battles. Its allies will inflict poison or a burn, which allows Hex to land even harder. Hao grimaces in concern and looks over to Ash, who he hasn't been paying much attention to. Has he lost any Pokemon yet? How is he handling the other Totem? There's no time to get too caught up with it. He needs to focus on his own battle. Ash's Litten is next for him, but sadly there isn't much he can do. His Fire-type attacks seem to do barely anything. Meanwhile, Salazzle and Salandit have numerous Poison-type moves they can pummel him with. Salazzle hits him with Attract and he becomes infatuated, just as Pikachu did. She and the Salandit then follow up with their Toxic Venoshock combo, which has Litten quickly fainting. Ash is beyond nervous. All he has last is Rockruff, and while there is a type advantage there, he can't help but to be nervous after seeing how strong Salazzle has proven to be. Still, he has no choice, and he sends out the Rock Pokemon. Rockruff growls furiously at the sight of Salazzle, and the large lizard simply smirks at her opponent. Ash tells Rockruff to use Rock Throw, and a shower of small rocks does heavy damage to the Totem. Salandit goes in for Venoshock, but a second Rock Throw defeats the ally Pokemon. This actually has Salazzle show genuine fear, so she strikes back with her secret weapon, Attract. Ash calls for Rockruff to dodge, and then use Rock Throw, but the small Pokemon can't match the Totem's speed, and the attack lands. Only, nothing seems to happen. Rock Throw is executed with no hesitation and knocks Salazzle back. Ash is stunned and confused, and Kiawe speaks up before he can say anything. Ah, so you save your female Pokemon with a type advantage for last. Smart move, Island Challenger. Oh yeah, totally, Ash says as if this was his plan all along. Pikachu rolls his eyes, knowing Ash probably had no idea his Rockruff was a female. Rotondex scolds him for not knowing this or even asking it for this information. That said, Ash's confidence returns tenfold, and he's ready to take control of the battle. On the other hand, Hao's situation is looking bleak, so he does the only thing he can. He sends out his Eevee and then pulls out his Z-Ring, knowing that he needs to hit hard. He commands Eevee to use Breakneck Blitz against the ally Salazzle. Thankfully, Eevee is fast and powerful enough to take her down. Now he's only left with the Totem Marowak. Marowak goes in for a super effective Brick Break, but Eevee only just dodges the hit thanks to her speed. Hao then swaps Eevee out for Raichu, who's weakened from before, but Hao needs her to use just a single move, Thunder Wave, which she does, leaving Marowak paralyzed. Now the battle is more in his favor. Marowak tries to land an attack, but struggles due to paralysis. Raichu is able to hit off a Shockwave before Marowak finishes her off with Hex. Now it's all up to Eevee. Marowak tries to use Flame Wheel, but he's much slower now after becoming paralyzed, allowing Eevee to dodge and strike back with several bite attacks, which deal super effective damage. Both rivals are ready to end things, unbeknownst to each other. Ash raises his Z-Ring and commands a Breakneck Blitz from Rockruff, while Hao commands a Shadow Ball from Eevee. The attacks collide with each totem, resulting in a major explosion. Crystal clutches Kiawe's leg, as everyone waits for the smoke to disperse. Once everything is clear, both totems have been defeated. Ash and Hao have both won, and at the same time, Eevee and Rockruff rush over to their trainers, as they all happily celebrate their wins. Crystal also cheers at Kiawe's side. "Well, it looks like you both tied here," Kiawe says. "I say you're both amazing trainers, and you've earned your reward." The Totem Pokémon shake themselves off before making their way over to Ash and Hao, presenting them each with Waterium Z crystals. Ash and Hao high-five each other, congratulating each other on the win. Kiawe asks them which other trials they've completed, and the boys list them off. Kiawe then says that the only other island trial on the island is the trial at the Lush Jungle. At that moment, Selene and Lily meet up with the boys and inform them of the Team Skull skirmish they were just in. Ash and Hao thank the girls for keeping those pests from interfering with the challenge and informing them that their plan is to head to the Lush Jungle next. So, they part ways from Kiawe and head to the next stop of their journey. As the trainers walk off, Kiawe doesn't miss the way Crystal focuses on one trainer in particular, staring at them until the group is out of sight. After a few days' trek, Ash and the gang make it to Route 8, near the trial site of their next island challenge, Lush Jungle. As they arrive, they head to the Pokemon Center, where they're shocked to see the center full, with worried trainers everywhere and injured Pokemon being wheeled around by numerous Blissey. Lily asks a random trainer what happened, and they explain that there's been a horrible situation taking place in the Lush Jungle. Two gangs of Passimian have been in a turf war for days, and they've been battling non-stop. Any attempts to intervene have gotten Pokemon caught in the crossfire and injured. As such, no one has been able to participate in the island trial for days. Selene immediately thinks this must be the work of Team Skull, and says that they have to solve this issue. The others agree, so they head over to the Lush Jungle. Once they arrive, they see a girl with green hair holding a small pink Pokemon as others surround her feet. All appear injured and frightened. Hao asks if they're okay, and they recognize this girl as Mallow, the trial captain they met when they first arrived to the island. She says that all the Pokemon around her were injured after getting too close to the warring Passimian. She says that she's tried to put a stop to this fighting, but she's been unable to. She's even called upon the Totem Pokémon, but even that failed. Selene feels awful for the injured Pokemon, especially the small one in Mallow's arms. She asks Mallow if she thinks Team Skull is behind this, but she says she doubts it. Passimian are just naturally territorial, but this behavior has gotten very out of hand. Selene takes out a potion and tends to the small pink Pokemon, and it perks up. It then nuzzles up to her. Mallow says that the Pokemon is called Bounsweet, and she often sees it in the jungle, and is devastated to see her injured. Ash naturally volunteers to see what is going on, as do Selene and Hao. Mallow as such decides to take them deeper into the Lush Jungle so they can help out. Lily offers to stay with the injured Pokemon, but Mallow tells her that they might actually need all the help they can get. So Lily nervously agrees to go along. The Bounsweet tries to follow them, but Selene tells her to stay behind since it'll certainly be dangerous and she doesn't want her to get hurt again. The group ventures deep into the Lush Jungle, where they see a huge tribe of Pokemon in a horde. The large Pokemon are wildly duking it out, attacking each other violently at random. Mallow informs them that these are the Passimian, and they are in two different groups, which she calls the Greens and the Reds, based on their markings. The leader of the Greens is the small Passimian, which she has called Tiny, and the leader of the Reds is the big Passimian with red markings, which she has nicknamed Claw, both of whom are pummeling each other into the center of the horde. The trainers are horrified by this sight, and they need to do something about this. They send out all their Pokemon to try to quell the situation. As their Pokemon battle, they're able to halt a lot of the fighting, but many just refuse to back down. Raichu and Cleffy's psychic moves and Honey's fairy moves are a great benefit. At one point, a Passimian is doing heavy damage to Ariel, but a magical leaf from behind catches it off guard, enough for Ariel to take it down with Bubble Beam. Selene turns around to see the Bounsweet from earlier, stumbling, but standing proudly. Selene is naturally shocked that the small little fruit followed them into the Lush Jungle regardless of the warning, but is thankful nonetheless. Bounsweet offers to help battle with Selene, and while she knows it is dangerous, the Pokemon seems insistent, so she agrees. Rowlet notices a sleeping Komala in a tree, who is being flung around due to the battling. Hao attempts to go save it, but there's so much scuffling going on from the Passimian and the others that Hao can barely get to it. At this point, all he can do is throw an Ultra Ball to ensure its safe capture and get it out of the brawl. After a long time, only Tiny and Claw are left. Tiny has clearly taken more damage, but still doesn't want to stop fighting. Meanwhile, Claw seems to be dominating the battle. At one point, Tiny falls to his knees, barely able to stand, but still growling angrily. Claw moves in to deliver more punches. Ash calls out to Claw and says that Tiny clearly can't battle anymore, so they should just stop this fighting. But Claw ignores the human and goes in for Brick Break. Ash throws his body in front of Tiny and takes the attack, shocking everyone, especially Tiny. But in typical Ash fashion, he struggles to his feet, saying that was nothing, before sending out Litten. Claw shakes off his surprise and goes in for another Brick Break, while Ash has Litten intercept with Fire Fang. But Claw effortlessly knocks him back. Litten and Claw spar for a while, with Litten being very overpowered. Ash begs for Litten to get up as he struggles to his feet. Claw goes in for one final blow, but out of nowhere, Litten's body bursts into flames, with such a force that Claw is pushed back. Rotom Dex says that this is Litten's Blaze ability. In this state, Ash knows he has to make this time count. He pulls out his Z-Ring, equipped with his new Waterium Z. Ash strikes the pose for Inferno Overdrive, just as Kiawe had taught him, and Litten executes the strongest fire-type attack anyone has ever seen. The Z-move utterly engulfs the surrounding area, with all the surrounding woodland burning to cinders. Everyone is in shock once the massive smoke cloud clears. Claw is clearly defeated, only just being barely able to move an arm. Ash praises Litten on his victory, but focuses his attention on the Passimian. Ash asks the now calm Pokemon why they've been fighting, and through Rotom Dex's translation, the Green state that this area had been their territory for years, where they lived peacefully, but recently, the Red Nation attacked out of nowhere, and they were only trying to defend themselves. The Red state that they had to look for a new territory after their old one was destroyed by humans, and they chose to get a new one by force. Rotom Dex goes over to them and pulls up a picture of the Team Skullgrunts, asking if these are the humans who destroyed their territory, and the Reds actually confirm it. Selene cedes as she had a feeling that Team Skull was behind this, always wanting to disrupt a trial site, but to put other Pokemon in danger is going too far. She promises to give them a piece of her mind the next time she sees them. Mallow apologizes for the misunderstanding and offers to help the Reds by finding a new territory in the jungle for them. But for now, she wants all the Passimian to live in peace. The Reds agree and they go over to check on Claw, who's managed to pull himself up. He glares at the humans before walking off, his pack following behind him. Meanwhile, the Green celebrate having their home back, but there's one Passimian who isn't as overly cheerful. It's Tiny. He slowly approaches Ash, staring at him intently. Hal says that he's probably grateful that Ash saved him back there, and Ash tells Tiny that it was no big deal, and he was just happy to help. Tiny looks back at his pack, and then back at Ash, taking another step closer. Ash asks if Tiny would like to come along with him, and Tiny agrees. Ash is overjoyed by this, and tosses a Great Ball at Tiny, catching the powerful Pokemon. Meanwhile, the exhausted Bounsweet nuzzles up to Selene, and she asks the small Pokemon if it wants to join her, which she agrees to. Selene then takes out a friend ball to add the new friend to her own team. The kids make their way out of the Lush Jungle to take all of the injured Pokemon to the Pokemon Center. After a few days, Mallow opens the Lush Jungle to island challengers again. Lily and Selene help out with the cleanup efforts with some other island challengers, while Ash and Hal go in to have their 5th trial. Mallow informs them that all they need to do is gather ingredients to make a soup which will lure the totem Pokemon. Ash and Hal split up and use their full teams of Pokemon to gather the ingredients. They are able to get it done quickly and return to Mallow in the middle of Lush Jungle, where they prepare the soup. The trainers collect even more ingredients than Mallow expected, so the soup serving is much larger. Mallow tells them that with this much soup, they may actually attract multiple totem Pokemon. Wait, what? Before the kids can even react, loud footsteps are heard approaching the group in the jungle. Ash and Hal turn around slowly to see 2 huge Pokemon. They are both Totem Lurantis, as identified by the Rotom Dex, but one is noticeably a different color, and the Pokédex explains that this one is shiny. The shiny one stands before Hao, while the normal one is in front of Ash. Mallow says that the jungle is home to numerous Totem Pokémon, and it's always a different Pokémon who faces the challengers. It seems these two will be the ones to take on Ash and Hao. Ash and Hao look at each other and nod, both ready to get into action. "Hey Ash, how about another challenge?" Hao says. What did you have in mind?" "Last time we had a race to beat the Totem and allies, but of course we tied. How about something different this time?" "Sure, I'm up for anything," Ash replies. "This time, instead of using 3 Pokemon, let's see if we can defeat the Totem and allies with only 2 Pokemon each." "Sounds good to me," Ash exclaims. He then sends out his first choice, his newest Pokemon, Tiny. Mallow is surprised to see Ash using the Passimian after only just catching it so recently. But Ash says that as soon as he got Tiny, he wanted to use him in his Totem battle, since Mallow said that he could face off against the Totem Pokémon of the Lush Jungle. This impresses Mallow, and she's excited to see how this battle goes. Hao decides to follow in Ash's lead, and sends out his new Pokemon, the Komala he caught in the jungle a few days ago. Mallow is intrigued by this choice as well, and Hao says that after learning of Komala's moves during his training a few days back, he wanted to use it in the trial for sure. The battle then commences. Ash wastes no time and has Tiny go in for a low sweep. The Passimian lunges forward quickly and lands a devastating kick to the Totem, causing it to topple over. The Totem tries to strike back with a slash, but Tiny evades just in time. Ash is impressed greatly by Tiny's speed and compares his athleticism to a sports player. Totem Lurantis uses Razor Leaf, but once again Tiny is able to outrun the attack. Tiny clearly seems to have the upper hand, and Ash praises the Pokemon. Tiny grins at Ash, and then out of nowhere hurls his berry at the Totem. The berry flies at an immense speed, and lands a hit directly in Lurantis' face. Ash asks if this was a move, and Rotondex confirms it to be Fling. Ash prepares to call for the attack again, but this is when Lurantis gets serious. It calls upon an ally Pokemon, and it winds up being a Trumbeak. The Flying-type Pokemon goes in for a pluck on Tiny, but he jumps away to dodge. But this causes him to lose focus on Lurantis, who strikes him with a Razor Leaf. At this point, his battle becomes much more difficult. Meanwhile, on Hao's side, the shiny Totem Lurantis launches a Petal Blizzard at Kamala. The small Pokemon becomes surrounded by a tornado of sharp petals. But oddly enough, Kamala just stands stoically in the center of the circle. Hao has Kamala use one of the moves he deemed necessary for the battle, Acrobatics. Kamala stands on his log pillow and jumps into the air, completely avoiding the Petal Blizzard. He then lands a powerful punch onto Lurantis, knocking it back. Mallow comments that this Kamala is oddly agile, but unfortunately it's not agile enough, for Lurantis strikes back with an X-Scissor now that Kamala is up close. Kamala is sent flying and lands on the ground. Lurantis uses Petal Blizzard again, which deals heavy damage to Kamala. Kamala is able to get to his feet though, and rushes up to use Slam. Again, the small Pokemon's power is shown to be on another level, as the attack knocks Lurantis backward into a nearby tree. Hao is thrilled to see Kamala land another strong hit, but out of nowhere he notices the battlefield become much hotter. The challenger is confused until he sees a ball of fire strike Kamala. Out of nowhere, a cast form comes down from a tree and launches another weather ball at Kamala, but this time he uses his log to block the attack. On Ash's side, the tide has turned, and Tiny is getting largely pummeled by Lurantis and Trumbeak. Trumbeak uses Bullet Seed and pelts Tiny with his attack. Meanwhile, Lurantis goes in for numerous slash attacks. Ash tells Tiny to hang in there, and commands him to use Smackdown. The Passimian hurls his berry at the fluttering bird, knocking it out of the sky. Ash knows Tiny needs to finish Trumbeak off if he has any chance of winning. Being outnumbered is too dangerous. Ash tells Tiny to use Thrash. The Passimian begins pummeling the bird and eventually flinging it into the ground. Trumbeak is defeated, evening the match to a one-on-one. But it seems the Totem is unfazed. Lurantis uses a Solar Blade, which she aims into Tiny. The Pokemon is launched into a nearby tree and takes huge damage. But surprisingly, Tiny gets back to his feet, though barely. He attempts to use one final Thrash attack, and while the move partially lands, Lurantis extends a blade and finishes Tiny off with a slash. Meanwhile, Hao is having a hard time with the shiny Lurantis and Castform, but he's starting to get an idea. Castform keeps launching Weather Ball attacks, and Kamala simply dodges. But Hao decides to have Kamala use its log as a baseball bat and smack one of the Weather Balls back at Lurantis. The attack does huge damage to the totem. Castform becomes startled in shock, and while both Pokemon's guard is lowered, Hao takes the chance to use Sing on Lurantis. The Pokemon falls asleep, meaning Komala can focus all of his attacks on Castform. Komala hits hard with Acrobatics and Slam, and by now, Castform has switched to using Water Gun, not wanting a repeat of what happened before. But at this point, Komala simply needs to use one final attack to get the win. Flail. Castform is defeated, and Lurantis is still asleep, so Hao has Komala go in for one final hit with Acrobatics. But at the last moment, Lurantis wakes up and takes Komala down with Solar Blade. The attack lands as the harsh sunlight fades. Mallow comments that Ash and Hao have both lost one Pokemon each. Now they need to win with only one more Pokemon in order to pass their self-imposed challenge. Ash and Hao once again share a nod, and they send out what they hope to be their last Pokemon in the battle, Litten and Rowlet. Litten's fur ignites into flames, and it's clear that he's really fired up. Hao, on the other hand, takes to the air and glares angry at his opponent. Ash tells Litten to use Fire Fang, while Lurantis counters with Night Slash. Litten bites down on Lurantis' arm, setting it ablaze. Lurantis then pulls back and uses Night Slash to knock Litten away. Lurantis attempts to keep Litten at bay by using Razor Leaf to keep him back, but the Pokemon incinerates it with Ember. Litten has the type advantage, but Lurantis has a size advantage, and the battle becomes intense. Meanwhile, Rowlet is able to do big damage with Peck, and evades the shiny Lurantis' move in the air. Lurantis is able to hit Rowlet with X-Scissor for some big damage, though. It also heals some of its health with Synthesis. Both Pokemon are becoming weakened quickly, and Hao in particular knows he can't risk Lurantis healing too much, so they decide to use their Z-moves. Hao has Rowlet use Breakneck Blitz. Meanwhile, Ash uses Inferno Overdrive with Litten. Right before Rowlet collides with his opponent, Hao tells him to use Peck in addition to the Breakneck Blitz. The Z-move combinations collide with the totems, with the Lurantis facing Ash becoming engulfed in flames. It slowly topples over and falls unconscious. Meanwhile, the shiny Lurantis is knocked back into a tree. The collision is so powerful that it snaps the tree in half. The Pokemon attempts to get back up, but it quickly becomes clear that it can no longer battle, and it falls to the ground. As their trainers cheer, Litten and Rowlet begin to roar in victory. The Pokemon then become enveloped in a bright light, and they both evolve. Rowlet takes to the skies, now as a Dartrix, while Litten emerges from a fiery glow as a Torracat. Both boys are thrilled by their Pokemon's sudden evolutions. With this, the boys have won their trials, including the self-imposed challenge, once again tying. Mallow commends both of them for their wins, and the totems award them with their Grassium Z. Mallow then teaches them the pose for the Grass-type Z-move, Bloom Doom. Lily and Selene reunite with the gang, and the totem Pokemon actually give the girls Z crystals as well. Lily is confused, but Mallow says that the totems must be thanking them for their help in restoring their home. Selene is thrilled by this, and Lily graciously thanks the Lurantis. With this trial finally complete, Ash and Hao can now finally take on their grandchild. Mallow tells the boys that they can meet up with Olivia in her hometown of Konikoni City. After several days of traveling, the kids arrive in Konikoni City. They find Olivia at the jewelry store she works at. Lily gushes over the beautiful jewelry and accessories at the store. Meanwhile, Ash and Hao inform her that they're ready for their battle. But they notice that Olivia is actually frantically running around the store. Once she finally notices them, she tells them that they won't be able to battle anytime soon because one of her Pokemon, her Lycanroc, is missing. She says that it randomly ran off and she can't find it anywhere. Lily asks if this has ever happened before, and she says that it had once long ago, but after that it hadn't happened again, and she has no clue what could be going on now. She's simply looking at all the places she and Lycanroc normally go to in order to find it. Ash decides to send out his Rockruff in order to search for Lycanroc, using her strong sense of smell. The kids meanwhile split up to search the nearby areas to find Lycanroc. Selene looks through the nearby Route 9, but she doesn't find Lycanroc. She does, however, run into Gladion. Her Pokemon instantly growl angrily when they see the boy. Selene demands to know what the Team Skull member is doing there, and tells him that if he's there to disrupt any trials, that he'll regret it. Gladion says that he was only there to train his Pokemon, which he'd been doing all day. But earlier, his Lycanroc ran away from him and he's looking for it now. This shocks Selene, and she wonders why these Lycanroc are all running off. Gladion then asks what she is doing there, and she says that she's on a mission and leaves it at that. She rushes off, but Gladion can sense that something else is going on. Meanwhile, Rockruff roams all over the place in her search for Olivia's Lycanroc. But as she's searching, an overwhelming feeling washes over her. For some reason, she gets the urge to run off. Eventually, she makes her way to the Ruins of Life, where she encounters Olivia's Midnight Lycanroc and Gladion's Midday Lycanroc. The Pokemon are staring at the sunset, and as soon as Rockruff notices this, she begins staring at it as well. For some reason, she gets the urge to begin battling both Lycanroc. A battle ensues, but Rockruff struggles heavily against her evolved forms. She launches attack after attack, but fails to do much damage to them. Meanwhile, they deal heavy damage to her, and she comes close to fainting, but refuses to go down. Eventually, Pikachu hears the nearby commotion and directs Ash to it. At the same time, Lily, Hao, Selene, and Gladion also make their way to the Ruins of Life, after having searched everywhere else. The sunset begins emitting a strange green light, which catches the Pokemon's attention. Rockruff looks directly into the sun, and her eyes begin to glow green, before her entire body follows suit. Ash arrives to see his Rockruff evolve into a Lycanroc, though it looks vastly different from Gladion's. At that moment, he notices the other two Lycanroc as well, seeing Olivia's Midnight form Lycanroc for the first time. After Lycanroc's evolution, a sparkling pink dust falls from the sky and showers the three Lycanroc. Everyone looks up to see a strange Pokemon above them. None of them know what it is until they hear a voice. Tapu Lele. The kids look over to see Olivia, who had finally arrived. She informs them that Tapu Lele is the island guardian of Akala Island and is known for its healing powers. Ash and the others are amazed by this, but still confused as to why the Lycanroc were drawn here. He's also confused on the different appearance of the Pokemon. Olivia explains that Lycanroc is a Pokemon that up until now only had two known forms, based on when it evolved. Hers is a midnight form, as it evolved at night. Gladion adds in that his is a midday form, as it evolved during the day. Olivia also explains that Rockruff is known for running off to evolve, which is when hers had evolved and run off the first time. Ash realizes that this must be why his own Rockruff evolved, and maybe the other Lycanroc sensed it, which is why they ran off as well. Ash notes that his Rockruff evolved during the sunset, between day and night, so could this be a rare new form? The trainers are unsure, but for now they decide to call it the Dusk form, since it evolved at dusk. The sun by now has completely set, and the beautiful night sky covers the landscape. Even Olivia is confused of what happened overall, but regardless, since she's now reunited with her Lycanroc, she can take Ash and Hao on in their second grand trials. She tells them that she'll battle them at noon tomorrow, but as thanks for helping her, she'll allow them to each have something for free from her store tomorrow morning. Gladion also leaves with his Lycanroc as well, Selene glaring at him until he's out of sight. The next morning, the kids head over to Olivia's store. None of them expected much when it came to what they would choose to take, but they are shocked by what the store offers. Luxurious items are found within all cases, and the trainers are stumped on what to get. Eventually, they all decide on a few trinkets, with Hao being the last one to make his choice. He can tell that Ash is becoming restless though, and he really wants to get to his match. So Hao tells Ash and the others that they can go on ahead. He continues to look through everything in his own leisurely fashion. His Eevee becomes restless, however, when she sees the numerous evolution stones at the back of the store. Hao remembers that Eevee has numerous evolutions, which can be achieved by evolution stones, so he figures that this is the perfect time to get one. The only question is, which one should he choose? Ash and Lily decide to meet up with Olivia for the battle, but Selene isn't ready to leave just yet. She decides to go to the nearby salon and clothing store to change up her look. After leaving, she prepares to join Ash and Lily, but along the way, she notices someone having a battle in the nearby area, Gladion. Selene assumes that he's training up his Pokemon, as he mentioned before. She thinks to what he said last time they spoke at the Battle Royale Dome, and she quickly makes a decision. She approaches the boy and demands a battle. Gladion initially looks reluctant, but to her surprise, he agrees. He tells her that he heard from Plumeria about their encounter and how she defeated her along with more Team Skullgrunts. Such a show of strength actually made Gladion want to battle her again, so this seems to be as good a time as any. They agree on a short battle, using 3 Pokemon each. Gladion begins by sending out his Zorora, and Selene is surprised that he didn't send it out disguised as another Pokemon. Regardless, she sends out her new Bounsweet, which she named Peach. Gladion starts things off by commanding Night Daze. Peach takes a massive hit and is flung backward. Selene fights back with Energy Ball, but Zorua is quick enough to dodge the attacks. The Fox Pokemon moves in for a feint attack, but once up close, Peach blocks the move with the hard calyx on her head. Selene commands a follow-up grass whistle, which puts Zorua to sleep. From here, Peach can fire off energy ball attacks back-to-back, and eventually a solar beam to finish Zorua off. Selene can't help but to gloat about how much stronger she's gotten to be able to defeat Gladion's well-trained Pokemon with one she only recently caught. Gladion is unbothered and comments that the Pokemon was likely already naturally strong when she caught it. This annoys Selene, but Gladion follows up with his Porygon 2. Selene is surprised to see the Pokemon now evolved, but doesn't let this faze her. At this point, Hal notices the battle and approaches Selene. He is about to ask what is going on, but the scene soon becomes clear once he sees Gladion. Naturally, he assumes the Team Skull member is up to no good. Selene has no time to fill him in though, as she commands an energy ball, but Porygon 2 responds with a zap cannon. The attacks collide, creating an explosion. Selene asks Peach if she's okay, and the small fruit nods. But Gladion gives her no time to recover, as he decides to go in for a big attack. Hyper Beam. The little Bounsweet stands no chance at taking this major attack, and she gets blasted straight out of the battle. Selene doesn't let the loss upset her too much, as she knows Porygon 2 will need to recharge after the attack. So she sends out Honey next, showing off her new evolution. She quickly has Honey use her new move, Pollen Puff. The attack does a big hit to Porygon 2, but it still seems ready for battle. Gladion orders a tri-attack, and Honey tries to dodge, but is unsuccessful. Hal calls for Honey to be careful, and Selene orders Draining Kiss. The attack lands, allowing Honey to regain her strength. The Pokemon continue to fire numerous attacks back-to-back. Gladion orders Zap Cannon again, and Selene another Pollen Puff. The resulting explosion knocks both Pokemon out. Only one Pokemon is left for each side. Selene calls on her starter, Ariel. Meanwhile, Gladion uses Null. Selene knows how strong this Pokemon is, but has faith in Ariel. Null starts out with Crush Claw, but Ariel blocks it with a water balloon. She then strikes with a close-range Bubble Beam. Null hits Air Slash, which sends Ariel flying. Selene orders Icy Wind to slow Null down, but Gladion tells it to strike back with Razor Wind. Ariel tries to block the attack with another water balloon, but Razor Wind destroys the shield. Selene feels overwhelmed, and this is only increased when Gladion pulls up his arm and a Z Crystal is shining on his Z-Ring. But it's one Selene hasn't seen before. He also strikes a pose Selene hasn't seen before. This only makes her even more concerned for what's to come. She quickly gets her Waterium Z ready and commands Hydro Vortex. Gladion meanwhile calls for Supersonic Psy Strike. The Pokemon Z moves collide in a major explosion, damaging everything in the surrounding area. As the smoke clears, Ariel is lying flat on her stomach and only just barely moves. Meanwhile, Null seems fine, aside from a bit of heavy breathing. Selene begs her Pokemon to get up, and the Popplio struggles to lift her head up. She stares angrily at her opponent, Gladion's dark eyes glaring back at her. Ariel then howls loudly and begins to glow. All eyes are on the small creature as she evolves into Brionne. Hal shouts ecstatically, and Selene cheers in delight, but Gladion ignores the change in circumstances and immediately orders a Crush Claw. Brionne defects this with a massive water balloon, and this one doesn't shatter upon being hit. Selene then orders Bubble Beam, which seems to do a heavy blow to Null, though it ultimately still stands strong. Gladion has Null use a final powerful Giga Impact to defeat Ariel. Selene, once excited over her new evolution, now has her heart shattered over the loss. She slowly picks up her sea lion, telling her that she did well, before returning her to her Pokeball. She notices Gladion approaching her, but she remains silent. He and his Pokemon look over her before telling her that he must admit, she has become stronger. It's clear to see how Plumeria lost to her. Selene would normally have had something, anything to say, but can't seem to find any words aside from a small, thanks I guess. Selene tells Hal that they better head over to the Ruins of Life, since Olivia and the others are likely waiting for them. But before the two can walk off, Gladion extends a hand. Selene is confused by the gesture before she realizes that Gladion is handing her something, another Z Crystal. She asks why he's giving her this, and he says that he doesn't need it, but if she doesn't want it, he'll gladly give it to Team Skull's subordinates. Selene angrily snatches the Z Crystal away, obviously unimpressed by the threat. "It's Flyinium Z," he says before he turns to walk off. At the Ruins of Life, Selene and Hal meet back up with Ash and Lily, who are still waiting for Olivia. Selene and Hao are surprised to see that she hadn't arrived yet, but Lily says that it's fine because she took the time to take pictures with Rotomdex to send to Kukui for research, possibly to connect anything to Nebi. Thankfully, the Kahuna arrives soon enough. She apologizes for the wait, but informs them that she was gathering enough Pokemon to be able to battle both Ash and Hao back-to-back with no interruptions. Now she asks the all-important question, who will be battling her first? Hao tells Ash that he's fine if he wants to go first, but Ash shocks everyone when he says that he wants Hao to battle first. Hao is confused by this, but Ash explains that since he had his grand trial first on Melee, he wants his rival to take the lead this time. Selene and Lily encourage him, saying that he's grown so much as a battler, and that he should have no issue battling first this time. Internally, Hao is a bit nervous, but he doesn't want to show it. Instead, he tells Olivia that he'll gladly challenge her now. After all, he's prepared to win. Olivia is thrilled to hear this, so the two take their places on the makeshift battlefield. Olivia tells Hao that this battle will be a bit different from their previous grand trial, as she will take them on in a double battle. This now stifles Hao's confidence a bit. He wasn't anticipating a double battle. He's not really battled in this format before. But Ash and the others encourage him from the sidelines. This hypes him up, and he remembers how much better he's become as a battler, and he has faith in his Pokemon and that they'll be able to win. Olivia says that the battle will now commence. Hao, now more hyped than ever, is so excited that he throws out his Pokemon at the same time Olivia sends out hers. This shocks the others, as they thought Hao would have waited to see Olivia's Pokemon first. As the Pokemon hit the ground, it is revealed that Olivia has an Alolan Graveler and a Gigalith. On the sideline, Ash is surprised by Graveler's Alolan form, as he'd not seen it before. Hao meanwhile sends out his two Pokemon, Crabrawler and a Vaporeon. His friends are stunned by this, but Hao quickly explains the situation. He says that when he was shopping at Olivia's store, Eevee couldn't take her eyes off the Water Stone, so he chose to get it, and evolved her, especially once he heard that Olivia was a Rock-type specialist. Olivia smirks and tells Hao that this was a smart idea in theory. Lily is a bit confused by this comment before she quickly realizes something. But before she can say anything, Olivia quickly follows up and says that he can have the first attack. Hao immediately commands Bubble Beam and Water Pulse from Crabrawler and Vaporeon respectively. The attacks strike Olivia's Pokemon, but they seem to withstand the hits well enough. She orders Gigalith to use Sandstorm, and the attack pushes back the water attacks, and sweeps across the entire battlefield. The attack has Hao's Pokemon covering their eyes in distress, right as Olivia orders her Graveler to use Thunderbolt. This has the trainer shocked, as the attack lands a devastating hit to Vaporeon. Hao shows his surprise, which causes Olivia to explain that Alolan Graveler is a Rock and Electric type, meaning that his Water-type counter now has a counter of its own. The young trainer grimaces, clearly not expecting this. Selene recalls the Alolan Geodude she battled in the Battle Royale tournament, and now finally remembers that indeed, the Alolan Geodude line is Electric type. Hao is now almost regretting evolving Eevee into Vaporeon, but he quickly pushes the thought aside. This is what Eevee wanted, so they're going to get through this together. Hao has Crabrawler use Power Up Punch, which slams Graveler away. However, the Pokemon rolls around into a rollout attack, striking the crab back before he can defend himself. Graveler aims her attack at Vaporeon next, but Hao tells Vaporeon to use Aqua Tail, smacking the rolling rock monster away once again. Olivia then commands Gigalith to use Rock Slide, hitting both of Hao's Pokemon. Hao asks his Pokemon if they're okay, and they nod back to him. Hao orders a Crab Hammer against Gigalith, but the Pokemon uses Protect to avoid the hit. Immediately, Olivia calls for a Discharge from Graveler, which is able to hit both opponents, while Gigalith is protected. Hao calls out to his Pokemon, asking if they're okay again. Vaporeon topples over for a moment, but is able to get back to her feet. Crabrawler shakes himself off, and raises his fist into the air, roaring loudly. Both nod back to their trainer, and he sighs in relief. Ash comments that Olivia's Pokemon are clearly trained for double battles, and it has him thinking intensely about his upcoming battle. Selene calls out some words of encouragement to Hao, letting him know that he can make it past this. But Olivia says that she doubts that strongly, and orders another Rock Slide from Gigalith. Hao tries to counter the hit by having Crabrawler destroy the rocks with Power Up Punch. Crabrawler is successful in not only destroying the rocks, but also raising his attack power immensely as well. From here, Hao orders a strong Crab Hammer against Graveler, which hits exceedingly hard, thanks to the attack boosts. Vaporeon hits Water Pulse on Gigalith, dealing a heavy blow, but the Pokemon stands strong. Hal remarks that Olivia's Pokemon are quite strong defensively. Olivia says that this is the specialty of Rock-type Pokemon, and adds that the Sandstorm helps as well. The Kahuna delivers another counterattack. Graveler hits Vaporeon with another Thunderbolt, while Gigalith uses Rock Blast against Crabrawler. Crabrawler rushes through the attack with a mighty Crab Hammer, dealing a strong hit. Vaporeon attempts to hit back with Aqua Tail, but Graveler is able to dodge by rolling around. Olivia commands another Discharge and Protect combo, and Hal's Pokemon take a lot of damage. They both fall over, gasping for breath, but make their way to their feet once more as they hear the trainer's call. Hal tells them that he knows they're strong enough to continue, and they nod back, though their faces are twisted in agony. This isn't good, Hal thinks. Olivia's Pokemon are dominating his. They're clearly trained specifically for this double battle format, something he hasn't done before on his own. If only he could get his Pokemon to work together to come up with some good combos, maybe he can turn things around. But this is where Olivia looks and addresses Hal. She thanks Hal for the battle so far, but says that it's probably best to end things here. Everyone looks over in shock as Olivia pulls out her Z Crystal. Hal already knows what's coming, as Olivia's Z power surrounds Graveler. The two then strike a new pose that the trainers had not seen before the Kahuna commands Continental Crush. A massive rock forms in the air and begins hurtling down towards Hal's Pokemon duo. Everyone freezes in shock, with the attack seemingly impossible to dodge. There's only one way Hal believes he can survive the hit, and that's with a Z move of his own. But which will he pick? The rock continues hurtling down. Hal then pulls out his own Z Crystal to strike back. His chosen Z power transfers to Vaporeon, and he strikes the pose for Hydro Vortex. Vaporeon then creates a giant whirlpool which completely absorbs the massive rock formation, causing it to break apart. While this is happening, he has Crabrawler fire off Bubble Beam at the stationary Gigalith, so Olivia has him use Protect to block the hit. From here, the Z-move collision explodes, causing pools of water and rock fragments to rain on the battlefield. Hal's Crabrawler punches many of the rocks toward Olivia's Gigalith. Protect isn't enough to shield him from such a continuous, massive force, and he winds up being crushed by several large rocks and taken down after his Protect breaks. Meanwhile, Graveler uses her speed to roll out of the way of most of the rocks. She even attempts to roll into a rollout attack to strike Hal's Pokemon, but before she can officially make contact, a quickly executed Bubble Beam and Water Pulse combo from both of Hal's Pokemon send her back flying. She crashes into the ground, unconscious. Hal's eyes widen in shock. He did it! He defeated Olivia's Pokemon and won his second grand trial. His friends cheer for him as he rushes to hug his Pokemon, thanking them for their hard work. Olivia is also surprised at Hal making such a comeback, but she's proud nonetheless. She thanks him for the battle, telling him that his combo attacks were amazing and awards him with his Waterium Z. Hal thanks her as well, and tells her that he'll be sure to refine his double battle tactics moving forward. Olivia looks over to Ash, beckoning him to the field. Ash does not need to be asked twice, and he dashes over. As Ash makes it to the battlefield, Olivia tells him that she's heard a lot about him from Hollow, how he was the recent Kalos League winner in this universe. Because of that, she hopes he doesn't mind her using her strongest Pokemon for this battle. Ash says that he wants nothing more than the best Olivia can bring. Olivia sends out her chosen duo, her Lycanroc and Probopass. Ash responds by sending out his own Lycanroc, along with Tiny. Lily notes at how they're both using Lycanroc, and she wonders which one will prevail. Selene naturally feels like Olivia's might be stronger, but is excited to see how things go regardless. Ash's Lycanroc growls as soon as she sees the opposing Lycanroc, very similar to how she interacted with Gladion's Lycanroc when she first saw it, and her green eyes shift to a deep, violent red. The battle commences as Olivia offers Ash the first attack. Ash tells Tiny to use Fling, and orders a Cell Rock from Lycanroc. The attacks are launched, but Olivia is not phased, telling her Lycanroc to use Counter, and her Probopass to use Magnet Bomb. Tiny's Fling and Probopass's Magnet Bomb collide, canceling each other out. Tiny's Berry is launched back at him, but he catches it safely. Meanwhile, Ash's Lycanroc lands her hit, but is smacked away by Counter to land double the damage. Lily notes that it will be difficult dealing with the opposing Lycanroc, since it can counter any physical attack Ash uses. Olivia then has her Lycanroc use Stone Edge, but Ash's Pokemon are agile enough to dodge. Unfortunately, they are helpless against the incoming Rock Slide from Probopass, which hurts them both in their attempts to dodge two attacks. Ash remembers that he needs to have his Pokemon work together, since Olivia's will be doing the same. He commands the Lycanroc to use Rock Throw, and the Wolf launches a barrage of rocks at the opposing Lycanroc. Olivia has Lycanroc put up a Stone Edge as a shield, but it seems this is what Ash wanted. As the Midnight Lycanroc hides behind the stone pillar, Tiny comes in for a low sweep, dealing a big hit to the enemy Pokemon. But this is also where Probopass launches a Zap Cannon at Tiny. This attack lands before he can even attempt to dodge, leaving him paralyzed. Ash asks if he's okay, and the Passimian responds with a thumbs up, though he grimaces. Ash has Lycanroc go in for Bite against Probopass, but Olivia's Lycanroc blocks her by intercepting the hit. It then hits another counter, sending the Dusk Form Wolf flying back. Ash's Lycanroc wobbles to her feet, but remains confident, growling at the opposing Pokemon once more. Ash has Tiny use Fling, hurling his berry at Probopass, though he's slow to execute the move due to paralysis. Probopass thus dodges the attack, and fires off a Rock Slide. Ash orders his Pokemon to dodge, which they are able to do, until Olivia orders Stone Edge from her Lycanroc, and once again, the Pokemon can't dodge 2 attacks and get hit. Ash realizes that this can't go on. He needs to take out at least one of Olivia's Pokemon to push things in his favor. He comes up with an idea. He orders Lycanroc to use Accel Rock and to run around Probopass quickly. Probopass becomes flustered, unable to move as Lycanroc circles around him. Ash then commands Tiny to jump up and use Low Sweep. Olivia can see what Ash is doing and tells her Lycanroc to go in with Fire Punch before Tiny can land. But before Lycanroc can land his hit, Tiny tosses his berry at him to knock him back, which works. From here, he lands his Low Sweep on Probopass, knocking him out. Ash and his friends cheer happily over him getting a knockout, but they know that Olivia's Lycanroc is still a threat on its own. However, at least Ash has the upper hand now. Or does he? Wow, that was an interesting show of teamwork, Ash. But don't think it means anything here. It seems I'll have to use my secret weapon now, Olivia says. Your Z move, right? A Z move, but not one you've seen before. Confusion is clear on Ash's face, wondering what Z move she could be referring to, if not Continental Crush. He soon gets his answer, as Olivia swaps out her Waterium Z for a new Z Crystal. But even from the distance, Selene, Lily, and Hao can see that it looks different from any other Z Crystal they've seen before. In fact, Olivia's Z-Ring looks different from other Z-Rings. Time to show you what a Z-Power Ring can do. Lycanroc, let's go! Ash is stunned, unsure of what is happening. Olivia then strikes a new pose as Z-Power surrounds Lycanroc. She then calls out for Lycanroc to use Splintered Storm Showers. From here, a giant rock rises from the ground, taking the Midnight Lycanroc with it. He jumps into the air as shards of stone follow him, and he dives toward Ash's Lycanroc. Ash orders her to dodge, but the orange wolf stands frozen with fear, unable to move. Before she can be hit though, Tiny pushes her out of the way and takes the attack head-on. While Lycanroc is unharmed, Tiny falls in defeat. Hao asks what on earth that was, and Olivia explains that it's a special Z move that only Lycanroc can use, and only if it knows the move Stone Edge. Selene says that she had no idea there were special Z moves like that. Ash is naturally impressed and says that he wants to see every Z move there is. But for now, he'll have to focus on finishing the battle. He recalls Tiny and the Lycanroc duo begin to duke it out. With Ash doing everything he can to avoid using contact moves in fear of counter, he can only have his Pokemon dodge attacks for so long. Olivia orders her Lycanroc to use Stone Edge, and Ash has his use Bite to destroy the rocks. But once she gets in close, the Midnight Lycanroc uses a close-range Stone Edge, launching Ash's into the air. Lycanroc slams onto the ground, and Ash calls out to her. She's struggling to stand, but her eyes glow an even deeper red as she howls loudly, not giving up. From here, Ash knows that he needs to end things, so he pulls out his Z Crystal. Olivia tells her Lycanroc to be prepared to counter anything Ash sends his way, but Ash smirks as he places the Z Crystal in his Z-Ring. Olivia, it's time to end this. With the Z Crystal I got from my first Grand Trial, I'll use it here to defeat you. Olivia and all of Ash's friends are stunned as Ash strikes the pose with Lycanroc, and he commands her to use all-out pummeling. A flurry of fists flies at the Midnight Lycanroc. He tries to avoid the attack, but it is simply too much, beating him into the ground. As he tries to get back up, the last thing he sees is Ash's Lycanroc, dashing toward him, mane glowing green as she smacks his jaw, flinging him backward through the air and into the ground. The Pokemon slumps over, defeated. Ash cheers loudly over his victory, while the others still stand in surprise. Ash's Lycanroc knew a fighting-type move the entire time? Selene asks. I never knew. Rotom flies in and admits that he informed Ash about the new moves Lycanroc learned upon evolution. In addition to learning Accelerock, the move he first saw Gladion's Lycanroc use a while back in the tournament, she learned a fighting-type move, which was none other than Counter. Ash was fully prepared to use it in tandem with his Waterium Z for the battle. So that explains why Ash used Lycanroc and Tiny, so either one of them could use the fighting-type Z move should they be given a chance. Ash meets Olivia in the center of the battlefield, and she praises Ash for the surprise attack. She never expected Ash to have his Lycanroc of all Pokemon use all-out pummeling, but she's pleased by the fact that he's trying out different Z moves with all of his Pokemon. She awards him his prize, but she surprises him by handing him not just one, but 2 Z crystals. In addition to Rockium Z, I'm also giving you Lycanium Z. You and your Lycanroc earned it. Wow, thanks Olivia. Don't get too excited. Remember, your Pokemon needs to learn Stone Edge in order to use Splintered Storm Shards. You'll also need a Z Power Ring, since the crystal won't fit in a regular Z Ring. Ash then of course asks where he can get a Z Power Ring. How about we check Ula'ula Island? Comes a familiar voice. Ash turns around to see not only Professor Kukui, but also Kiawe, Mallow, and Lana. The trainers are surprised to see all of them here, so naturally they ask what's going on. Kukui mentions that he heard from Mallow that Ash and Hao were having their grand trials, and he wanted to come see the battles and then give them a ride to Ula'ula. But it looks like they're a bit late. Lily asks what the others are here for, and the trial captains reveal that they tagged along to give the group a send-off to the next island. Ash asks if Kukui really thinks he can get a Z Power Ring on Ula'ula Island, and Kukui says that it wouldn't hurt to ask the Kahuna. With that, Ash and his friends become excited to head over to the next island. Kiawe informs them that the Kahuna is named Nanu, and he's a bit of a loner, but a very strong battler. This makes Ash excited to challenge him. Hao notices that Crystal had joined Kiawe, and he greets the Cubone happily. The small Pokemon expresses clear delight in seeing him again. The large group makes their way to Kukui's boat, and thanks the trial captains and Olivia for everything. Mallow wishes Ash and Hao well on their island challenge, and tells them that she'll keep working on the restoration efforts for the Lush Jungle. She tells Ash to take good care of Tiny, and Ash says that of course he will. Olivia adds that she hopes Lily can find some more information on Nebby on Ula'ula Island, if possible, and recommends her to check out the Ruins of Abundance. Lily agrees to do so and thanks the Kahuna for her advice. Lastly, Lana warns Selene that Team Skull has a major presence on Ula'ula and to be careful. It's even rumored that their boss frequents the location. Selene's gaze becomes intense upon hearing this, but she tells Lana that if she encounters Team Skull, she'll be sure to defeat them. With the final few words of encouragement, the kids then wave goodbye and bid Akala Island farewell, ready for the next part of their adventure.